Chapter 1571 Blocking 2 consecutive attacks. Ling Han completely ignored Tan Feng, and his eyes were only focused on Tan Yun. With a thought, a divine light suddenly burst from his body and soared into the sky. This column of light was so brilliant that it could perhaps be seen from an entire planet away. He was a being from the immortal realm. It really couldn't be any more evident. Tan Feng wore an expression of absolute astonishment, and it was as if he had been slapped across the face. He was rendered completely speechless. This was inconceivable. A measly eternal river tier elite had actually managed to grasp the regulations of the immortal realm and netherworld at the same time? This was turning the impossible into possible. However, he quickly regained his composure and said, "So what? Was a member of his Tan clan going to die for nothing?" His gaze became cold, and he was just about to launch another attack. "Hold it there," Tan Yun suddenly said, stopping him in his tracks. Tan Feng was extremely domineering, yet he was as obedient as could be before Tan Yun. He immediately stepped back respectfully, though there were question marks floating in his mind. Could it be that Third Elder knows about this 8 stones forbidden land or what not? Is he apprehensive because of them? Tan Yun gazed at Ling Han, and an idea gradually formed in his mind. As descendants of cultivators who had been banished from the celestial realm, they were all aware of how to return to the celestial realm. They needed to fuse the regulations of the 2 realms. Doing so would allow them to open the gates to the celestial realm. However, in the countless tens of millions of years after being banished, no one had ever managed to achieve this feat. The regulations of the 2 realms were impossible to fuse together, just like fire and water were impossible to fuse together. Regardless of which realm one was in, the regulations of that realm would always suppress and erase the regulations that one had grasped from the other realm. Even coexistence was difficult, so just how difficult would fusion be? Thus, returning to the celestial realm was merely used as a slogan. It was nothing but a dream. Now, however, it was as if they had seen a flicker of hope. They would pour all of their resources into raising Ling Han such that he could help them open the gates to the celestial realm. They would then kill him after entering. In any case, he would be able to open the gates once he became an earth demon. However, there were several heaven demons in the Tan clan. Thus, it wouldn't make a difference even if fused the regulations of the 2 realms and became an earth demon. After all, earth demons were absolutely no match for heaven demons. Entering the celestial realm was a dream of all those who were descendants of those who had been banished from the celestial realm. In fact, the importance of this dream was transcendent above all else, including something as serious as the death of an important clan member. "Don't rely on some forbidden land and whatnot to threaten the Tan clan," he said with a chuckle. He naturally couldn't allow a junior to look down on him, and he continued, "Even Saint Kings will possess nothing but raw power upon entering the netherworld. They'll be inferior to even yellow demons." Ling Han burst into laughter upon hearing this. He was unfazed even in the presence of an earth demon. The Hysteria Demon Master and the others couldn't help but nod in their minds upon seeing this. This young man truly possessed some tremendous courage. "Senior, even I'm able to fuse the regulations of the 2 realms, so the ancestor of my clan has naturally done so as well." Ling Han started to bluff again. In any case, no one here could call his bluff. If they wanted to, they were welcome to go to the immortal realm to verify his claims. "How about this? I'll block one of Senior's attacks to display the strength of the 8 stones forbidden land." Everyone was astounded upon hearing this. Who else spoke like this? Ling Han was referring to Tan Yun as senior on the one hand, yet on the other hand, he was denigrating the Tan clan as a lowly forbidden land. Just how much disdain did he hold toward them? However, this young man was truly quite courageous. He was actually offering to withstand the attack of an earth demon. "Sure," Tan Yun replied calmly. It was as if his emotions hadn't been affected at all. He raised a hand and grabbed at Ling Han. This was only a casual strike. However, just how powerful were earth demons? The power of regulation circulated around his hand, and this was accompanied by the stunning brilliance of tens of millions of heavenly bodies. This strike was so powerful that even yellow demons wouldn't be able to withstand it. He has to dodge this. Otherwise, he'll definitely be caught. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, causing a faint layer of golden light to shimmer around his body. Meanwhile, numerous symbols started to light up on the surface of his skin. their structures so complicated and profound that even heaven demons wouldn't be able to comprehend them. Wang! Tan Yun's strike landed, yet it was forcefully blocked by Ling Han. Pooh! All of the demon masters choked in shock upon seeing this, including Tan Feng. Ling Han had genuinely blocked it. A mere Eternal River Tier Jr. had genuinely managed to block the strike of an earth demon. Was this for real? Was this really not an act? Tan Yun retracted his hand, a look of astonishment on his face. He indeed held a very high opinion of Ling Han. Him being someone who had fused the regulations of the two realms at just the Eternal River Tier. This was someone who had the potential to enter the celestial realm. However, that was merely Ling Han's future potential, not his current power. How terrifying! What kind of freak is he? However, Ling Han didn't feel too good, either. He had faced the attack of an earth demon head-on, and only he knew that several of his godly bones had already been broken. Fortunately, the indestructible Heaven Scroll was incredibly powerful, and it was able to rapidly heal these wounds. It was just that his origin power had been completely drained after blocking this attack. Right now, he was in a state of extreme weakness. He couldn't hide this from the demon masters, yet it was because they could see this clearly that they were even more stunned. Ling Han had indeed relied on his own power to block the strike of an earth demon. He was truly going to defy the heavens. A fervent expression instantly appeared in Tan Yun's eyes. He was certain that Ling Han had practiced some extremely powerful technique. Was because of this that he possessed such astonishing abilities. If the Tan clan could obtain this inheritance. Gasp! It was most likely because he practiced this cultivation technique that Ling Han was able to fuse the regulations of the two realms. However, he had also claimed that there were 10 elders in the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, all of whom possessed the ability to fuse the regulations of the two realms. Judging by his performance, there was indeed a chance that this was possible. If they all charged over, with their battle prowess not diminishing, would the Tan clan be able to withstand their onslaught? He silently pondered over this. However, he quickly reached a decision in his mind. This was a massive opportunity, and he would obtain it for the Tan clan. Young man, why don't you come to our clan as a guest? If your clan members come, I'll naturally allow them to take you back. He reached over again. Boom! The sky was instantly blotted out by an indescribably powerful demonic hand. How was Ling Han going to block this attack? The ultimate defensive power of the indestructible Heaven Scroll had already been exhausted, and he couldn't enter the Black Tower, either. Ling Han was already out of options. The demonic hand pressed down, yet Ling Han's eyes suddenly lit up, their radiance soaring through the sky. Even Tan Yun faltered slightly upon seeing this. In fact, even he didn't dare to make contact with this light. He hurriedly retracted his hand. This was the light of Tao. Ling Han had received the recognition of heaven and earth after comprehending how to fuse the regulations of the two realms together, and at the same time, the light of Tao had also descended from heaven and earth. Ling Han had absorbed this light with his eyes. By unleashing it now, he managed to block another attack from the Supreme Elite. Fuck! The Hysteria Demon Master and the others were all transfixed with shock. If it were them facing Tan Yun, they would only be able to scuttle around like mice. However, this Eternal River Tier Elite had actually managed to block 2 consecutive attacks from Tan Yun. Although 2 attacks didn't seem like much, this was nothing short of a heaven-defying feat. Even they couldn't help but want to kneel in admiration. Meanwhile, Tan Feng was rendered completely speechless. This young man was truly an unfathomable freak. Tan Yun remained unfazed, and he even smiled as he said, "Young man, what other techniques can you use?" He reached over and grabbed at Ling Han for the 3rd time. How was Ling Han going to block this attack? Wang! The large demonic hand reached over, and it was as if both heaven and earth were resonating in unison. When in the netherworld, demon masters represented the will of heaven and earth. How can I block this? What should I do? Chapter 1572 There's always someone stronger. Ling Han was out of options. He had already used all of his trump cards. Although he could still use some celestial techniques, the limit of his cultivation level meant that he wouldn't even be able to rival yellow demons, much less earth demons. Moreover, now that he couldn't enter the Black Tower, he didn't even have the ability to escape. Fortunately, Tan Yun only wanted to capture him, not kill him. As such, he still had time. Once Small Tower awoke, he wouldn't need to be afraid anymore. Boom! The large demonic hand blotted out heaven and earth as it descended. "Heh, old Tan III, how despicable of you. You're actually targeting a measly eternal river tier cultivator. Moreover, you've already failed twice. You're truly bringing shame to old geezer Tan." A teasing voice suddenly traveled over, and it was surprisingly quicker than Tan Yun's attack. Moreover, it clearly traveled into every single person's ears. Pang! Tan Yun's hand descended, yet it was unable to press down no matter what. It was forcefully stopped 30 or so meters from Ling Han. At some unknown time, two people had already appeared beside Ling Han. One was a hunchbacked elder whose hair was all white and who was radiating an aura of age. It was as if he might suddenly keel over and die at any moment. The other person was a sturdy and tall man whose upper body was naked. He was dressed in a beast-skin skirt, and it was as if he were a savage. No one took an extra glance at the savage. Instead, they were all staring at the white-haired elder. This elder didn't appear special at first glance, yet upon closer inspection, one's entire focus and mind would be attracted by him. It was as if their minds had entered a swamp that they couldn't escape from. Everyone was drenched in cold sweat when they finally managed to compose themselves. However, their bodies felt weak, and even their spirit and energy had been drained by a significant amount. Gasp! Who is this old man? Tan Yun had initially been calm and composed, yet he couldn't help but feel surprised now. Friend. Senior, are you from the 8 Stones Forbidden Land? It appears as if you're familiar with our ancestor? Meanwhile, Ling Han was astonished as he gazed at the savage-looking man. That was none other than Go Li. Go Li winked with a smile upon catching his gaze and said, "Didn't I say so before? I said that we'll definitely meet again." The other demon masters were all shocked by what they heard. Senior. Tan Yun actually referred to that old man as Senior. One had to realize that Tan Yun was already an earth demon. That being the case, just how powerful was this old man, someone who he had referred to as Senior? There was only one possible answer: this old man was a heaven demon. The old heaven demon chuckled and said, "Time truly flies by. At that time, you were still a little rascal who ran around butt naked, yet you've already grown up to become a mighty figure who can rule over an entire territory now." This. The demon masters all wore peculiar expressions. Senior, you're truly skilled at denigrating others. Even though everyone has experienced a similar childhood, saying this before an earth demon elite is probably taking things a bit too far. Tan Yun's face flushed beet red. At his cultivation level, one should have been able to remain calm and composed like a mountain. However, these words had been uttered by a heaven demon, and there were so many demon masters standing beside them and listening. How could he not feel humiliated? Ling Han couldn't help but laugh in his mind. Go Li had most likely been raised by this old man. Both young and old were just as wickedly offensive as the other. However, he liked this. Senior, it appears as if you're familiar with our ancestor. Tan Yun forcefully composed himself, and he resolutely tried to change the topic. These were beings who stood at the pinnacle of the netherworld and peered down at the world. Their power was simply unfathomable. He pondered for a while before saying, "Senior, this person killed a disciple of the Tan clan. Since you're acquainted with our ancestor, please allow me to take him with me. I'm sure that our ancestor will be grateful for this favor." What? Are you trying to use old geezer Tan to pressure me? The old heaven demon humphed, and 2 clouds of black air burst from his nostrils. They then transformed into 2 divine spears that slashed at the sky, instantly causing heaven and earth to lose their luster. A sense of apprehension rose in everyone's heart. At the same time, everyone beneath the level of Genesis tier fell to their knees. They were stunned by this overwhelming aura. Only Ling Han was an exception. He had been recognized by heaven and earth twice, so from some point of view, he could also represent heaven and earth. Thus, his status wasn't lower than that of the Genesis tier demon masters. Tan Yun hurriedly bowed and said, "I would never dare to." Just like how he had pressured the Hysteria demon master and the others into obedience before, he was now being pressured into obedience by the old heaven demon. He had no option but to play to his whims. This was the influence of strength. The old heaven demon waved his hand and said, "For the sake of old geezer Tan, I won't press you any further. Go on, return to wherever you need to go." Senior. Tan Yun was unwilling to accept this outcome. That brat had killed a prodigy of the Tan clan, and he more so possessed a paramount secret technique. How could he give up so easily? "I'm not asking for your opinion," the old heaven demon said with a humph. He ruthlessly lashed out with his palm. Pa! Tan Yun was instantly sent flying, and he quickly became a small black in the distance, disappearing into the vast and boundless galaxy. The old heaven demon then turned around to face Tan Feng and the others, asking, "What, do you people also need me to send you on your way?" Tan Feng hurriedly shook his head and exclaimed, "No, there's no need to trouble you, senior." "Then hurry up and scram," the old heaven demon humphed. Yes, I'll scram right away." Tan Feng frantically grabbed the 4 disciples of his clan before releasing his golden path and fleeing into the distance. "Tan clan, I'll definitely remember the kindness that you showed me today," Ling Han suddenly said. "I'll make sure to repay this favor in the future." Tan Feng suddenly ground to a halt, a murderous expression appearing on his face. He almost gave in to the urge to turn around and smack Ling Han to death. However, upon thinking of the old heaven demon, cold sweat involuntarily formed on his forehead. He didn't dare to make another peep as he fled into the distance. The old heaven demon clapped his hands and said, "The show is over, it's time to leave now." Although his voice was soft, this was the decree of a heaven demon. Who dared to disobey him? The demon masters hurriedly grabbed their disciples and descendants before unleashing their golden paths and leaving. They certainly didn't want to be smacked flying by the old heaven demon. "Young man, come here, accompany me for a walk." The old heaven demon's voice was extremely amicable as he gestured for Ling Han to come over. Meanwhile, Go Li smiled and said, "Filth King Ling, don't be shy. What's there to be embarrassed about? It's not like you're a small girl or anything." Ling Han rolled his eyes in reply. This person couldn't be treated. He clasped his hands in respect and said, "I still haven't thanked Senior for stepping in to help me." "It was nothing," the old heaven demon replied with a chuckle. He started to walk forward, and Ling Han and Go Li both followed beside him, one to the left and one to the right. However, they both lagged a small step behind him. "Young man, I assume that you already know about the celestial realm," the old heaven demon said as he glanced at Ling Han. He had retracted his aura, and he seemed like an especially ordinary old man. "Yes, I do," Ling Han replied with a nod. His answer was short and to the point. There was no need to show off before this kind of powerful being. The old heaven demon nodded and said, "Then that saves me from having to explain." Ling Han didn't interrupt him, and he simply waited for the old heaven demon to continue. "My name is Ouyang Taishan," the old heaven demon said. "Moreover, I also have another identity. I'm the 9th elder of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance." Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Chapter 1573 Ancient Realm. The heavens were paramount, and even saints and demon masters had to act according to the will of the heavens. Defying the heavens would mean facing heavenly tribulation, which could obliterate one's body and soul. What did it matter even if one were at the Genesis tier? They would still have to face a mortal's calamity once every 100 million years. If they couldn't overcome these tribulations, they would be cursed by misfortune. Thus, it would be useless even if they still had a lengthy lifespan, they wouldn't be able to escape the fate of death. As such, the heavens couldn't be defied, nor could they be provoked. However, just the name of Heaven-Crushing Alliance was already offensive in and of itself. Moreover, the power of Genesis tier saints was intricately linked to the regulations of heaven and earth. Thus, this was more the reason that they shouldn't go about defying the heavens. Ling Han was astonished. If they were a few lowly thieves, he would still understand. After all, those who were ignorant knew no fear. Thus, it was possible that they would found forces such as the Heaven-Crushing Sect, Heaven-Crushing Faction, and whatnot. However, even a heaven demon had joined such an organization. This was truly a rare sight. Ouyang Taishan smiled as he continued to stroll forward, saying, "Young man, are you aware of how one can enter the celestial realm?" Fuse the regulations of the two realms and blast open the passageway to the celestial realm, Ling Han replied. Ouyang Taishan nodded upon hearing this. This sounds simple, but up until now, not a single person has managed to succeed. This is because it's impossible to fuse the regulations of the two realms. Ling Han was slightly taken aback. Hadn't he succeeded in fusing them? Or was he able to fuse them so easily because he hadn't reached the Genesis tier yet? Perhaps this fusion would fall apart once he advanced to the next major tier. You're an exception, so that's why I've come to personally visit you, Ouyang Taishan added. So that's how it is. I'm an exception. Hang on, that can't be right. Empress Luan Xing has also fused the regulations of the two realms. Only the heavenly phoenix divine maiden hasn't managed to do so. She can only replace the regulations of the immortal realm with the regulations of the netherworld. She can't fuse them together no matter how I explain. Perhaps this is because the Empress possesses a divine fetus? Ling Han didn't speak. It was evident that Ouyang Taishan hadn't come to merely take a look at him. Thus, all he needed to do was remain silent and listen. Young man, I'll let you in on a secret. Ouyang Taishan suddenly changed the topic and said, a long time ago it's already impossible to determine when exactly the netherworld and immortal realm were actually a single realm. What? Ling Han's eyes widened in shock. This was truly an explosive piece of news. The netherworld and immortal realm were a single realm. Oh, that's right. Small Tower has also said before that the celestial realm isn't transcendent above the immortal realm. Rather, it's just another part of the immortal realm. It's just a little more special. Moreover, the regulations are complete in the celestial realm, and there's no notion of power of creation or power of destruction. Could it be that the immortal realm was split into three at that time, one being the celestial realm, which preserved its original state but became much smaller? Then, the remaining sections split into two and became the immortal realm and the netherworld. However, this was a destructive division that not only split the land, but also split the regulations. That realm was called the Ancient Realm, Ouyang Taishan continued. In the Ancient Realm, the celestial realm was regarded as a special place where only those who reached the level of the great saint or earth demon were allowed to enter. It was split into the immortal realm and netherworld, and this in turn affected the existence of the celestial realm. You also know that the celestial realm experienced great turmoil at that time. Countless forces were massacred, and only a rare few people managed to escape. Some were also banished from the celestial realm, and they lost the right to obtain eternal life. Right now, the ancient realm exists as two separate realms, with the regulation of each in stark opposition to the other. This has also birthed division between the Genesis tier elites, who are now separated into demon masters and saints. At the same time, this has also stripped anyone of the right from entering the celestial realm. If we want to change this, there's only one possible option. A passionate glimmer suddenly appeared in Ouyang Taishan's eyes, and he said, we need to fuse the netherworld and immortal realm and recreate the ancient realm. What a lofty aspiration. What a lofty goal. Ling Han was stunned. So this was the true aim of the heaven-crushing alliance. They didn't desire to battle heaven and earth, but they instead desired to shatter the barrier that existed between the two opposing kinds of heaven and earth. They wanted to recombine the two opposing realms. However, is this possible? As if reading Ling Han's mind, Ouyang Taishan said, these two realms were originally a single entity. Thus, it's naturally possible to fuse them back together. In reality, the two realm passageways that you see are the products of the instinct of the ancient realm. It wants to fuse the two realms back together again. So this is the true purpose of the two realm passageways? This wasn't caused by the conflict between the two realms, but is rather a product of the two realms wanting to fuse together? Through this method, it wants the two realms to interact with each other, and eventually recombine to form the ancient realm? However, this process requires tens of billions of years, perhaps even trillions of years, the old heaven demon continued. Initially, we had no choice but to wait. Although we can help it along a little, the effects aren't especially great. However, your appearance has changed everything. You can become a core and fuse the regulations of the two realms. By doing so, you can increase the speed of fusion of the two realms exponentially. Ouyang Taishan wore a solemn expression as he gazed at Ling Han, and he said, right now, I'm officially inviting you to join the heaven-crushing alliance. As long as you accept, you can immediately become the 17th elder of the alliance. I can also promise you that we'll do everything in our ability to raise you. Gasp. Goli sucked in a sharp breath upon hearing this. 17th elder. What kind of glory was this? Just how powerful were the 16 current elders of the heaven-crushing alliance? They were all heaven demons and saint kings. Moreover, they had all reached the pinnacle stage of these levels. In addition, there was no notion of rank among these 16 elders. Thus, even though Ling Han would be the 17th elder, his power and influence wouldn't be weaker than that of the senior elder, second elder, ninth elder, or any of the other elders. Even those who had just broken through to the level of heaven demon or saint king didn't have the right to become an elder, yet such a position was now being offered to a measly cultivator at the medium extreme of the eternal river tier. How could Goli not be stunned? However, who told Ling Han to possess such an extraordinary ability? Only he could fuse together the regulations of the two realms. Ling Han pondered for a moment before asking, "Dare I ask, Senior, who else is in the heaven-crushing alliance?" Judging by his description, this was a supreme organization that spanned across the two realms. Sure enough, a force as powerful as the 8 Stones Forbidden Land was also involved in this grand plan. In any case, there were 8 forbidden lands from each of the Netherworld and Immortal Realm. However, the Dongchong Forbidden Land of the Tan clan wasn't one of them. Old Geezer Tan is a bit cowardly, and he's afraid that interfering with the fusion of the two realms will result in punishment from the heavens, Ouyang Taishan said, a look of disdain on his face. In his eyes, there was no greater aspiration than trying to enter the celestial realm. Moreover, if they didn't enter the celestial realm, their only fate would be dying of old age. As such, they were better off taking this gamble. However, not all of the Forbidden Lands agreed with this reasoning. Fusing the two realms? In their eyes, this was a completely impossible task. Thus, they preferred to look for other means. However, up until now, neither of the two sides had found any way to enter the celestial realm. Ling Han pondered for a moment before shaking his head and replying, "There's some animosity between me and 8 Stones Forbidden Land." Ouyang Taishan faltered upon hearing this, and there was a strange expression on his face as he looked at Ling Han. "You're really quite the troublemaker, aren't you?" Chapter 1574 Small Tower Wakes Up. Goli was also speechless. However, being able to offend 2 forbidden lands, not missing out either the Netherworld or the Immortal Realm at that, was also a kind of capability. More importantly, Ling Han managed to enter the Netherworld alive when he had offended the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. This was even more awesome. Hiss, this guy couldn't have come to the Netherworld to seek refuge, right? Goli thought further, and couldn't help but feel even more stunned. You could even comprehend the regulations of the Netherworld whilst being a fuck refugee, and merge them with the regulations of the Immortal Realm. This was practically enough to make anyone burn with jealousy. Meanwhile, Ouyang Taishan hummed deeply. The 8 Stones Forbidden Land was one of the most powerful forces of the Immortal Realm, especially the Grand Elder of the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, who was both naturally talented and diligent. He definitely could be ranked among the top 10 in the Immortal Realm. Even Ouyang Taishan did not dare be careless or overlook such a mighty figure. What more guarantee with complete confidence that the latter would definitely listen to his advice and resolve the animosity between him and Ling Han? "Tell me first, what enmity exists between the two of you?" he asked. Ling Han did not conceal anything, and related the grudge between himself and the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, causing Ouyang Taishan to frown involuntarily. This was a little intractable. "I will ask an old friend of mine from the Immortal Realm to lobby your cause, and I believe that old who will look at the big picture," Ouyang Taishan said. He had that kind of confidence because he thought that the Hu clan's grand elders longing to enter into the Celestial Realm was more important than everything else. If they could enter into the Celestial Realm, it would mean that everyone had hopes of becoming a deity and attaining unlimited lifespan. In comparison, the deaths of a few clansmen would be a paltry matter. Those who would have major accomplishments would not bother about the minor details. "Young man, I will seek you out again after some time. Additionally, I will also have to pay a visit to the Tan clan to ensure that they would behave themselves." Ouyang Taishan nodded, and spread out a golden pathway. Grabbing Go Li, he left. "You left just like that? Then what about me?" Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. Now everyone had left, but he could not use the Black Tower. The cloud-piercing shuttle was also inside. So what was he to do? Traveling right across the galaxy? He indeed did not have to worry about dying of thirst or starvation, but the speed would be too slow. Even if he ran all the way to Sea Space Planet, it would take an unknown amount of time. Forget it. He'd better just wait for Small Tower to recover. Ling Han sat down cross-legged. He had spent the major part of these 3 years on comprehending formations, and had accumulated a great amount of experience, which he could sort out. This would be of great help to his learning of saint-level formations in future. The higher the cultivation level, the harder it would be to battle surpassing one's cultivation level, especially for the Genesis tier. The inhibition that a great saint had on a medium saint, and a medium saint had on a small saint was practically so huge that it was impossible to reverse. At the bottom of things, it was mainly due to the fact that all who could reach the step were king tiers, and had cultivated to pinnacle level at some cultivation level or another before. Thus, even if there was still the difference between ranks 1, 2, and 3, unless everyone's cultivation level was the same, it would be extremely difficult for this kind of advantage to be reflected. If he wanted to maintain tier-surpassing battle prowess at the Genesis tier, then he would have to make good use of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and formations were the best weapon for him, for they would fully exploit the unique trait of sturdiness of his physique. He sat there for 10 days and 10 nights. It was not him that wanted to end his meditation after that, but rather that Small Tower had finally woken up. "Brat, have you gotten the Chaos Source Rock?" Small Tower asked. Its voice was very weak. It was clear that it had not fully recovered. "Take it." Ling Han did not tease it. It looked like Small Tower was really very seriously weakened this time round. "Very good." Small Tower put the Chaos Source Rock away, and then ignored Ling Han completely. "Hey, you ungrateful stupid Small Tower. You are obviously kicking me to the curb when I'm no longer useful." Ling Han called out, but Small Tower completely did not look like it had any intention of responding to him. In any case, now that the Black Tower had reopened, he was not in a rush to leave. Instead, he entered into the Black Tower, and made an inventory of the gains that he had received in Ocean Dragon Mountain with the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden. Additionally, he also wanted to inform the 2 women about the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden still did not manage to merge the regulations of the 2 realms. It was useless no matter how much time she spent underneath the reincarnation tree. The Heaven-Crushing Alliance know, all the Forbidden Land should know how to return to the Celestial Realm, but not one person succeeded in these countless years, which clearly shows that taking this step is incredibly difficult, Ling Han said after a moment of thought. "You and I being able to merge the regulations of the 2 realms should be a special case." His last words were directed at the Empress. Previously, Gu Dawi was filled with confidence, certain that he definitely could return to the Celestial Realm. His confidence probably came from the fact that he had formed a divine fetus. Otherwise, what need was there for him to waste 9 lifetimes in the immortal realm? Could it be that he could not form the divine fetus of his 10th life in the Celestial Realm? It was not that he could not, but rather that he had absolutely no way to return to the Celestial Realm in his previous 9 lives. "Are you going to agree?" the Empress asked. Ling Han nodded and said, "I would not mind. Everyone should have the right to climb the highest peak of the path of cultivation, and no one can take that right away." The Empress smiled softly. In truth, she actually did not care about all life in this world. What business was it of hers? But since Ling Han said this was what he wanted, then she would use her full efforts to assist Ling Han. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, meanwhile, was very depressed. Even if she had gained the inheritance of the 3 Phoenix Kings, there was still a massive gulf existing between her and Ling Han and the Empress. "Fonger, come give me a kiss." Ling Han couldn't help but tease her when he saw her despondency. "Go to hell." The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden rolled her eyes at him. Yet the Empress stretched over and planted a light kiss on the corner of Ling Han's lips, as if she was comforting him. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden thought for a moment, and also came closer and kissed him. The Empress, being as enchanting as she was still very gentle and doted on this bad guy. If she still acted very unruly, she would probably be banished into the cold court. Ling Han laughed loudly, one arm wrapped around the Empress while his other wrapped around the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and planted a heavy kiss on the beautiful lips of the 2 women respectively. Then, he drew out the saint fruit and began to cook. It could not be left uncooked. The medicinal effects of the saintly medicine were too violent, and directly ingesting it would be a straight path to death. Even Ling Han was no exception, and cooking it in the Black Tower would allow him to draw on the power of the Black Tower to suppress it, and there would also be no waste of the slightest bit of medicinal effects. They shared it amongst themselves, but the heavenly phoenix divine maiden could not eat very much at all. She only drank a little soup, and immediately began refining it beneath the reincarnation tree. Chapter 1575 Creating a New Pill Recipe. Ling Han and his group rode the cloud-piercing shuttle, and returned to Sea Space Planet. They had not even rested when they saw Wu Ju had sought them out. He pounced straight at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and the result was naturally him being picked up by Ling Han by the scruff of his neck and thrown out. "You damn guy, you've gone too far." The little bottom's expression was one filled with grievance. "Che, you wanted to embrace my wife and claim that I've gone too far?" Ling Han laughed. "Your thoughts are too filthy. I only miss sister too much," the little bottom exclaimed angrily. "Just give up the thought. It's not possible." Ling Han shook his head. Wu Ju was about to say something else when he suddenly discovered Empress Luan Xing. His eyes couldn't help but pop, his mouth half gaping, showing an incredibly stunned expression. Immediately he scampered over to her and said, "Sister, my name is Wu Ju, what's your name?" The Empress was proud, and didn't even cast a look at him. Yet, this completely stirred up the little bottom's true nature, and he wanted even more to worship her. "Don't think about this one either. It's still my wife." Ling Han wrapped an arm around the Empress's slender waist, and her austere expression washed away as she smiled sweetly at him. "Ah!" The little bottom pounded the ground tragically. In his heart, the heavenly phoenix maiden who was both sister and mother to him was this guy's wife, and the exquisite beauty that had just caused his heart to throb, and ignited the seeds of love in him was also this guy's wife. Why was it that all the good women of this world were all taken by this bastard? Emily walked over, and patted the little bottom's head. Then she said to Ling Han, "When you fought me previously, you have not gone all out." She was slightly displeased. As a king tier, she hated it when people took it easy on her. Ling Han smiled and said, "That is my ultimate move. If I use it, it would mean that either I or my enemy would die. In a spar, it is not suitable to use it." Only then was Emily appeased. She nodded. "When I am stronger, I will seek you out for another spar." Tan Mo's appearance allowed her to see that she was far from reaching the limits of the Eternal River tier. Before breaking through to the Genesis tier, she still had a very wide space for improvement. "All right," Ling Han replied casually. Emily brought the little bottom away with her, while Ling Han, the Empress, and the heavenly phoenix maiden settled down, and took some time to enjoy some delicious food. Cultivation was not the only thing in life. One should still take the chance to enjoy themselves when one could. A few days later, Ling Han suddenly felt like he was being watched, but no matter how hard he searched, he could not find the source of this feeling, which was a little strange to him. However, there was a demon master standing by here, and he was a big shot among yellow demons at that. There were not many people that were qualified to come here to commit crime. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then put the matter aside. He had a more important matter he had to deal with at present. Creating a new pill recipe. The alchemical pills that he possessed now did not really suit his needs. Though they could increase the accumulation of origin power, it was much too slow, and there was too little saintly medicine. Waiting for the reincarnation tree to bear fruit would be even slower. Furthermore, the number of fruit would be limited. In truth, the saintly medicine's main use was to increase the comprehension of great Tao, and not the accumulation of origin power. To the majority of cultivators, this was rather the easiest part to be resolved. His comprehension ability was extremely high in the first place, and he also had the reincarnation tree so he could drink reincarnation tree. What he needed was the accumulation of origin power. Because this was too unique, aside from some specific divine fruits such as the red clear fish fruit, there was no alchemical pill that would have that kind of effect. It was too impractical. Their ancestors didn't even bother to study this field, and even if they did get some result from their studies, it would be poison to others. Perhaps the celestial realm had this kind of pill recipe, but because the ancient realm had broken up, this recipe had long since been lost in the passage of time. Thus Ling Han wanted to create this kind of alchemical pill. Previously, he had grasped the pharmacology of all the medicinal ingredients. In theory, Anyone would be able to create a pill recipe as long as he had enough time to delve into the field. Furthermore, he was the alchemy emperor, and he also had something nature-defying like the reincarnation tree. Ling Han went into seclusion to create something out of nothing, and come up with a new pill recipe. This was a challenge, but for an alchemy emperor who had grasped all pharmacology, this was not a dilemma that had no solution. Time passed quietly, and already a year had flown by. Ling Han was still working hard on brainstorming about the new pill recipe in the Black Tower. Occasionally, he would come out and spar with either Mo Li or the Empress. He would not simply focus on alchemy and neglect his martial arts. He already had a model in mind, but he had not completely confirmed it. There were still a lot of details that he had to examine. However, he only planned to have himself and the Empress ingest this alchemical pill. Thus, he was also dealing with it, keeping their special conditions in mind, so he could ignore some things, such as the violent nature of the medicinal effects. Their physiques were astonishingly strong, and belonged to the category that would not easily get sick because of bad food. Thus, it was fine even if the medicinal effects were a little violent. There was no need to worry about this aspect. Every time Ling Han moved around outside, he would always feel like he was being stared at. The farther he was from the chaotic demon palace, the stronger this feeling would be. It was like someone wanted to take the chance to make a move on him, but because he was not sure of his chances, he continued to stay in hiding. Could it be Hu Feng? After this thought flashed through Ling Han's mind, he shook his head. Firstly, he was already in the netherworld, and according to reason, Hu Feng should not be able to predict his whereabouts any longer, and secondly, if Hu Feng was here, he was practically like an ultra-bright pillar of light in the netherworld, lighting up whatever place he was at. So how could there possibly be no hint of anything unusual? Or could it be someone from the Tan clan? Ouyang Taishan had gone off to play the role of mediator, and warn off this forbidden land from acting recklessly. Perhaps, they might have appeared to have agreed, but secretly sent out assassins. As long as they could do things cleanly, who would be able to accuse them of having killed him? Ling Han smirked internally. If anyone dared jump out and make trouble for him, as long as he reached the Genesis tier, he would use the power boost from the Black Tower and directly kill them. Fuck, did they really think that he was a pushover? A few days later, a golden pathway stretched out from the galaxy. Ouyang Taishan had arrived. He had a conversation with Ling Han, and told him that he had resolved most of his problems. He was only waiting for him to agree, and he would be able to join the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Chapter 1576. Green River Valley. Ouyang Taishan talked to Ling Han about the matters concerning the Green River Valley. This was a sacred land for cultivation that the 8 forbidden lands of the netherworld had worked together to create, and poured all the efforts of the 8 clans into. The cultivation resources were naturally astonishingly many, and additionally, there would also be high-grade demon masters providing teachings and clearing doubts. There was even inheritance of celestial techniques, so it was amazingly awesome. Originally, things like techniques would not be easily taught to outsiders, but because they could not see any hope of returning to the celestial realm after such a long time, these forbidden lands also softened their policy and broke the old rules, conducting a deeper exchange of cultivation. Of course, the celestial techniques that touched upon their core, such as the Tide of the Ages, would definitely not be taught. Additionally, there was also a similar place in the immortal realm, and it was called the Peace Palace. There were not only the prodigies of the 8 forbidden lands inside the Green River Valley. They would also bring some promising saplings in as well. On the most important premise of returning to the celestial realm, a great many people had relaxed the rules of their clans. Of course, this also drew the dissatisfaction of some of the more conservative parties, but now the mainstream culture was being open-minded. Furthermore, there were also prodigies of the immortal realm inside the Green River Valley. Nurturing them to the Genesis tier was not the motive. What the Heaven-Crushing Alliance truly wanted was still those who could merge the regulations of the 2 realms. Thus, some prodigies of the immortal realm went there to attempt merging the regulations of the 2 realms, and on the other side, the Netherworld would also send some of their geniuses to the Peace Palace. Unfortunately, no one had succeeded so far. Ling Han only considered it for a short while, and then made the decision to go to the Green River Valley. Now that the Black Tower could be used again, he also had 1 to 3 chances for a power boost, so Ling Han was filled with confidence. Worst come to worst, he would flip the whole Green River Valley over. Bring it on. Ling Han had once asked if such super geniuses like Emoli could be brought to the Green River Valley as well, but Ouyang Taishan shook his head and said she was not qualified enough. Even Emoli was not qualified enough. Ling Han finally felt shocked. Just what kind of freaks were there in the Green River Valley? The golden pathway spread out, and Ouyang Taishan brought Ling Han off with him. Only when he had left did Sea Space Planet recover its original ambience. Previously, a heaven demon had arrived, causing everyone to feel a coldness from fear and trepidation. After they left, the figure of a young man suddenly appeared out of nowhere, a strong killing intent in his gaze. Hu Feng. However, the present Hu Feng was no longer the Hu Feng who had just entered into the netherworld, and no longer was the pillar of light that surged to the skies. Instead, he had completely fitted in with the surroundings of the netherworld. He was no longer a saint, but was rather a demon master. Ling Han, no matter where you run to, I will kill you. The Celestial King technique and Celestial tool that you have are all mine. He also rode a golden pathway, and with a flash, his figure disappeared. There was not much time left for him anymore. Once Ling Han advanced by another minor level, the heavenly tribulation would completely sever the link of karma that he had on him, and though Hu Feng had grasped the regulations of the netherworld, and once more possessed the power of the Genesis tier, his ability of prediction was still 0. He needed even more time to grasp more regulations of the netherworld. At present, it only allowed him to have a preliminary grasp of the battle prowess of the Genesis tier. In truth, it was far from the battle prowess he had had in the immortal realm. The Green River Valley was very far, and even a demon master would have to take close to 3 months' time to reach it. It was not on any planet, but was rather a small world that had been directly set up in the middle of the galaxy. Chapter 1577. Becoming a target again. Ling Han looked at the 5 of them with a smile and replied, "That's right. I am Ling Han. Do you all have some business with me?" "Ho, nothing much. We just wanted to see what right a guy who is merely in the medium extreme of the eternal river tier has to become an elder." A young man retorted smilingly, yet there was a clear disdain in his tone. He wore a black-plated armor which had spikes protruding from it, appearing very sinister. He was an eternal river tier, but his aura's strength had far surpassed an ordinary person in the consummate level of the eternal river tier. It seemed like he only had to blow out lightly, and he would be able to kill a few hundred to more than 1,000 people in the consummate level of the eternal river tier with his mere breath. His strength far surpassed that of Emoli, Zhu Ba, and the others. He was definitely capable of being on equal level with Tan Mo, pinnacle level of the eternal river tier, and it was possible that he had formed as many as 2 million stars. Ling Han couldn't help but nod internally. As expected of a prodigy that had walked out from a forbidden land, he was indeed amazing. Furthermore, Ouyang Taishan had said previously that Emoli was not qualified enough to come here, and there was indeed some logic to his words. Merely this person was enough to overwhelm her who knew how many times over. Thankfully, you did not actually become one, or it would be a humongous joke. Another person laughed raucously. His aura was not in the slightest bit inferior to that of the young man in the plated armor from before. Deep disdain for Ling Han was clearly written all over his face. "Just scram quickly." A third young man did not smile, but his whole expression was cold. "You are completely unworthy of standing on equal level with us. This is practically dragging down our overall level." The remaining 2 merely crossed their arms over their chests, looking completely at ease and carefree, as if they were there just to watch the excitement. A bunch of smelly bugs. The Empress was furious. She pointed at the 5 of them, her face filled with menacing killing intent. They actually dared to insult her Ling Han. The 5 of them took one look at the Empress, and couldn't help but look stunned. Even if they were prodigies of the current generation, so what? In front of the Empress's charms, they were still like little boys that had just had their first contact with the affairs of the heart, completely at a loss what to do. There was actually such an exquisitely beautiful woman in this world. Not only was she beautiful, she also had a noble bearing, as if whatever she said was right. Others would willingly submit and obey her. This clearly was not something prodigies should do, yet the 5 of them did not want to free themselves, and were willing to bow at the feet of the Empress. Even if they could only kiss her shoes, they would have deemed having lived their life's worth. However, king tears were king tears after all. The 5 of them forcibly withdrew their uncontrollable hearts, and didn't even dare take another look at the Empress, fearing that they would completely fall for her. How about this? We will not make things difficult for you. As long as you can take 3 moves from me, we will not chase you out. As long as you crawl between our legs, we will allow you to stay here, the first young man in plated armor said. Ling Han's eyes involuntarily turned cold. He knew that when one entered a new place, there would definitely be the phenomenon of bullying new people. However, hearing the words of this young man, he was still slightly angered. You all should die. The Empress was the first to fly into a rage, and moved to attack the 5 of them. In a one-on-one battle, the Empress could not possibly win. What more when it was 1 against 5 now? Thankfully, the 5 of them were protective of the fairer sex, and only dodged her attacks and did not fight back. Otherwise, the Empress would very likely be suppressed with a single move. Wife, ignore them, Ling Han said, smiling. The Empress stopped, and cast a proud, disdainful eye over the 5 of them. Only then did she slowly return, and when she arrived by Ling Han's side, she immediately became cute and seemingly helpless, as gentle as water. The eyes of the armored young man and the others all became bloodshot with envy. What part of them was inferior to Ling Han? Yet why was such an exquisite beauty disdainful of even casting a second look at them? Ling Han looked at the 5 of them, and said, If you're itching to be beaten, I can teach you guys a lesson. However, I don't have that kind of free time now. Go on and wash yourselves clean, and 3 years later, I will definitely thrash your behinds. This. The 5 of them were furious. You are a little too arrogant, aren't you? Want to make a move? Ling Han scoffed. Don't think that I don't know the rules. If you guys force me into a spar just because your cultivation levels are higher, you will have to suffer serious punishment. Their expressions stiffened. They had rushed so quickly over because they wanted to bully Ling Han while he was still unaware of the rules here, and threaten him a bit. If they scared him too badly, Ling Han would become completely humiliated. How would he be able to take the position of elder in the future then? But they had not thought that Ling Han would actually be so slippery, being familiar with the rules even when he had just barely arrived. Don't stand in the way and be an irritant. Don't tell me that you guys have cultivated so much that you don't even know how to be human anymore, and want to be dogs instead? Ling Han said coldly. The 5 of them exchanged a look, yet they slowly cleared the path, allowing Ling Han and the Empress to leave. They watched the figures of Ling Han and the Empress disappear into the distance, expressions of fury on their faces. Are we going to let him go just like that? Then we will become a joke. It's all right. 2 years later will be the ranking competition that is held every 10 years. We will each make a request of our respective seniors to arrange for us to be in that brat's group. There will definitely be at least one among us who will come up against him. Haha, at that time, I will definitely make him wail and weep in despair. A mere eternal river tear, who is an outsider at the same time, actually wants to have a share of the treasures that have been passed down by our ancestors? What wishful thinking! The 5 of them all smirked coldly. The Green River Valley was very big, and the river flowed continuously as if there was no end to it. Even Ling Han and the Empress walked close to 10 days to finally reach a place where there was no further path ahead of them. In this place, the Green River surged into empty space, and there was no way to take one step further ahead of them. This was a small world, a mystery realm, and not the real world. Let's go back. The 2 of them returned to their stone chamber. Soon, someone came and gave them a spatial ring. The cultivation resources that Ling Han would need for 1 year were contained within. This was really generous. It was practically as if high-grade alchemical pills were completely free. It was enough to make anyone below Genesis tier go crazy. Yet Ling Han did not care too much. He gave all these alchemical pills to the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, while he himself continued to study a new alchemical pill. He was already close to succeeding. Chapter 1578. 27 Killing Formations. Ling Han continuously improved on the pill recipe. A brand new pill recipe had to undergo innumerable adjustments from the start to perfect completion. Another half-year later, Ling Han broke into a smile. He had found a point of breakthrough, and greatly improved the medicinal effects. When a new furnace of alchemical pills was concocted, he shared it with the Empress. Woo! Not too long after ingesting the alchemical pills, there were fiery flames surging from both of their bodies. That was because the medicinal effects were too violent and had taken on the form of flames. Thankfully, both their physiques far surpassed ordinary eternal river tier. Ling Han's physique was close to matching Genesis tier, while the Empress had also formed a divine fetus, and any attack she suffered could even be distributed among her 9 doppelgangers. It was the same for the medicinal effects. Thus, both of them could bear it, but these medicinal effects were still incredibly violent, causing blood to seep from all their apertures, and they looked very terrible. However, the effect was truly obvious. The Empress already possessed enough comprehension of cultivation level, so when her accumulation of origin power reached the required level, she immediately broke through. The heavenly tribulation came in waves, and she went to the end of the Green River Valley. This was the place for those who needed to endure a heavenly tribulation. Meanwhile, the effect on Ling Han was slightly inferior, but he took another alchemical pill. Ah! He yelled in agony. Even if his physique was amazingly strong, and his godly bones were even close to reaching the level of saintly material, his blood and flesh were slightly inferior after all. Under the barrage of the medicinal effects, his blood vessels ruptured, and his heart and other internal organs had all sustained severe injury. Feels great. He inhaled sharply and gritted his teeth. The origin power in his body was bubbling, directly surging towards the peak of the medium extreme. He comprehended great Tao beneath the reincarnation tree, and after a mere 10 days, he jumped up and exited the Black Tower. The heavenly tribulation came as expected. The Empress had long since endured her heavenly tribulation, and was waiting for him inside the stone chamber. As a powerful aura enshrouded her, it was as if she was truly a supreme empress with incomparable grace, filling one with bone-deep love for her, yet absolutely not daring to commit sacrilege. "Wait for me!" Ling Han threw out these words, and hurriedly ran out. The heavenly tribulation would wait for no man. His figure sped away rapidly, and he covered more than 1,000 miles in one breath. Then boom! The first flash of lightning fell on him. This was still very far from the end of the Green River Valley, but there was already no one staying on either side of the valley. Thus, he could rest assured and endure the heavenly tribulation without worry. He took the initiative to shatter his godly bones to be tempered under the heavenly tribulation. His enduring the heavenly tribulation was merely going through the motions. His main purpose was to strengthen his godly bones. Additionally, he also drew out the divine demon's sword to be further tempered by the heavenly tribulation. Though this celestial tool had already advanced to the saint tier, there would be no drawbacks from being tempered by a heavenly tribulation, either. Half a day later, even the heaven and earth could only withdraw their might as they could do nothing to Ling Han. Ling Han channeled a drop of indestructible true fluid. He sensed the strength of his godly bones, and broke into a grin. The strength of his godly bones had not advanced into the saint tier, and this was within his expectations. However, compared to before, they had become much stronger, and this would grant him the ability to inscribe even more limitless 9 deaths formations on his godly bones. If desired, an eternal river tier could not advance into the saint tier, yet could endlessly form stars, and far surpass the consummate level of the eternal river tier in terms of power, and completely suppress the latter. They could be considered another type of demon master or saint. Ling Han too could do the same now. However, his present cultivation level was still far from the pinnacle level of the eternal river tier, yet his godly bones were strong enough that he could inscribe a few dozen top-grade killing formations, and would be able to kill anyone below the saint tier. He returned to the stone chamber, and immediately began preparing to inscribe the limitless 9 deaths formation on his godly bones. This was the strongest killing formation beneath saint level, and Ling Han presently was unable to grasp saint level formations, so this was his best choice. Previously, he could inscribe 11 killing formations, and now, he could inscribe 27 killing formations. This was too frightening. With a mere thought from Ling Han, a frightening killing intent flowed out of the tips of his fingers, forming a ray of light that was only an inch long and looked like a sword. This was because his path of martial arts was more inclined towards sword Tao, so the might of the formation would be manifested in this form. With this strike, Tan Mo would definitely be unable to bear it. Ling Han had exchanged blows with Tan Mo before. Though he had only managed to kill the latter by depending on the divine demon's sword showing its might, he was still considerably familiar with Tan Mo's abilities. If he was to battle again with Tan Mo now, he could use the 27 killing formations in a head-on confrontation with the latter. Furthermore, he could guarantee that it would be Tan Mo who would be dying in the end. The destructive power of the killing formations was naturally the strongest. However, if it was he who would be countering this move, he would not choose a head-on confrontation. After all, his cultivation level was still in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. Against the pinnacle level, this was a glaring shortcoming. Thankfully, his physique was too strong. If someone at the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier wanted to wound him, it would still be extremely difficult. The sharpest sword and strongest shield were both in his possession, so who could be a match for him? At least, I have absolutely no need to fear anyone who isn't a freak that has formed 3 million stars, he murmured. But even a freak with 2,500,000 stars had appeared, so if a freak with more than 3 million stars appeared, it would not be something that difficult to accept either. In this Green River Valley, is there someone like that? Ling Han was slightly curious. This question of his was soon answered because he received a notification. 3 months later, all the disciples would undergo a martial arts competition. Everyone had to take part, and could not refuse for any reason whatsoever. I still have 3 months, I don't know if I can improve further, Ling Han mumbled. Both he and the Empress were furiously taking alchemical pills. In truth, the Empress had more of an advantage than he did. In terms of the ability to bear medicinal effects, it was definitely Ling Han who was more superior, but one would soon become immune no matter what kind of medicine he took as long as he took a large amount of it. Yet the Empress had 9 doppelgangers, and they could ingest alchemical pills in turn, so there was practically no reduction of the effects at all. 3 months' time was enough for her to improve further, and advance into the middle stage of the high extreme, but in Ling Han's case, this time would extend to more than a year's time. This was actually not too bad, either. The Empress was getting closer and closer to the Genesis tier, and he would soon be able to push her down. Ling Han couldn't help but rub his hands together. Just thinking of what kind of positions they could use when the time came was enough to make him feel a nosebleed coming on. He began to study the celestial techniques he had in his possession. Correct. He not only had one, but several. Previously, he had gotten 2 celestial techniques from the Hu clan. One was the Great Evolution technique, which was used to temper origin power. A similar amount of power blasted out, but because the origin power was more condensed, the battle prowess would naturally be stronger. The other was Darkness of the Paramount Night. After cultivating it, one could set up a completely dark environment, causing all those who were within to lose their 5 senses. This was a little like how he had gone to meet with the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire all those years ago, but it was clear that the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire should be more powerful. The latter was at least a being of the Severing Mundane, or perhaps even slightly higher than that. The third was the Flying Dragon Shadow Hands. He could confirm that this technique that had come from the Ocean Dragon Mountain was indeed a celestial technique. Others would probably be smiling in their sleep if they had managed to obtain a single celestial technique, yet he had a total of 3. Which one should I learn first? How distressing, he muttered, playing it up to the extreme. Underneath the reincarnation tree, Ling Han comprehended a celestial technique. 1 day was equivalent to 10 years, and 3 months were equivalent to close to 1,000 years of cultivation. With his comprehension ability, how could it be that he would not be able to reach at least small accomplishment level? Time passed swiftly, and 3 months had passed. Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes, a smile appearing on his lips. He had been here for 2 years, and had yet to exchange blows with the king tiers and prodigies here. He was really getting an itch for it. Chapter 1579. Issuing a challenge in public. Ling Han's advancement through the cultivation levels was actually very fast, but he could not be compared to the Empress. The latter had already reached the middle stage of the high extreme, and was advancing towards the late stage at present. The gap between the two of them would only expand, and would not shrink. In the area of taking alchemical pills, the 9 doppelgangers formed through the 9 Deaths Heaven art were really too useful. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden received a large volume of cultivation resources, and added with the assistance of the reincarnation tree, her advancement was also extremely amazing. She had directly streaked to the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Now, she was completely engrossed in cultivation, not even willing to have babies with Ling Han. Her whole day was spent cultivating and cultivating, and she was even crazier about it than Ling Han. This was also because she had been provoked. Who asked Ling Han and the Empress to cultivate and improve so rapidly? Furthermore, his other women were already in the celestial realm, and who knew, they might already be in the Genesis tier by now. How could she possibly dare to neglect her own cultivation? It would not be a pleasant feeling to be the weakest among all of them. Ling Han did not try dissuading her, either. He and the Empress had exited the stone chamber, and arrived at the platform above the valley. Masses had gathered. Today was a big day. Even though only 8 forbidden lands had formed the heaven-crushing alliance together, there were truly many people gathered here, about more than 100. Every single one of them was definitely a supreme prodigy, and there were none below the Eternal River tier. Without reaching this level, they would ordinarily still be cultivating in their own clans. They would only be qualified to enter this place after at least reaching this level. However, even Eternal River tiers could not be considered the strongest in this place, because there were actually as many as 4 demon masters, 3 men and 1 woman, respectively. They all possessed an intimidating bearing. Ling Han nodded. Since it was possible for a prodigy like Hu Feng to walk out of the 8 stones forbidden land, why was it impossible for the other forbidden lands? Ling Han shockingly discovered that 3 of these 4 demon masters did not even cast a single look at him, but one of the men stared at him for a while, his eyes filled with malice. Strange, he had definitely never met this person before. Humph, humph, Ling Han, you have come to be humiliated today. A young man jumped out. It was one of the 5 people that had stood in Ling Han's path 2 years ago. He was still wearing that black-plated armor. It should be a treasured armor, and that was why he wore it constantly. Ling Han swept an eye over him. It had only been 2 years, and this person had indeed improved slightly, but it would definitely not be too large an improvement. When one had reached this kind of level, forming an additional or even 10 additional stars was only a negligible improvement. However, if someone in the low extreme of the Eternal River tier formed an additional star, that would be a massive improvement. Have you washed yourself clean? He bared his teeth in a grin. The young man in plated armor couldn't help his expression from darkening. You haven't forgotten it? You are really a guy with a vicious tongue. Don't drop to his level. In any case, we will definitely make him suffer later. Someone beside him advised. Though it was visible that Ling Han had improved and advanced into the high extreme, they still did not take him seriously at all. What a joke. Even if he were in the consummate level, so what? How was he supposed to fight an opponent in the pinnacle level if he himself was not in the pinnacle level? There were at least 17 people here that had reached Tan Mo's level, and some were even stronger than him. Perhaps they really had formed more than 3 million stars. After about 5 days, the battles finally ended. Aside from 4 Demon Master level disciples, the top 3 were Zhang Ting, Yi Quan, and Lu Dang. The young man in plated armor was named Zhang Mo, and ranked in 10th place. He was also considerably powerful. He was definitely not weaker than Tan Mo. Ling Han, do you dare battle with me? I conceal my own cultivation level so my cultivation level would descend to be the same as yours. Zhang Mo suddenly leaped out, pointing directly at Ling Han. Issuing a challenge in public, would you accept or not? If you did not dare to accept a challenge to a battle between equals, then how would you have the face to see others in future? Chapter 1580. Then we'll battle. Are you afraid to accept the challenge? Zhang Mo continued to provoke Ling Han. He spread out his own silvery river, and it could be clearly seen that most of the stars within had dimmed, and there were merely 10,000 stars that were still exuding blazing light. 10,000 stars was the standard of someone who had just broken through to the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. This would be a relatively fair battle because what determined the battle prowess of a cultivator was not merely power, but also regulations. Thus, though Zhang Mo had sealed his power, he was still at the height of the consummate level of the Eternal River tier in terms of regulations. The other prodigies smirked coldly. If you did not have the courage to accept even a battle like this, would you still be qualified to call yourself a king tier? Lu Gan, meanwhile, showed a sliver of displeasure in his expression. He had already said that Ling Han did not have to take part in the competition, yet Zhang Mo still wanted to challenge Ling Han, and this naturally caused his displeasure. This was a challenge to his authority. However, the competition had been held just now, And he said that Ling Han did not have to participate, and he indeed had not. But it was a different situation now. This was a challenge. Even he did not have the right to stop them. Only the person involved was allowed to make his own decision whether to accept the challenge or otherwise. You could refuse, and the challenger could not make an aggressive move, but in that way, the one who had been challenged would be humiliated and become the target of public scorn and derision. Fearing to fight even in a relatively fair battle? We'd look down on you. Ling Han smiled faintly. He was just wanting to give this guy a beating. He had not imagined that the latter would actually deliver himself right up to his doorstep. Very good. He patted the Empress's delicate hand so that she would not be angry while he stood up. If you want a battle, then we'll battle. Zheng Emo was overjoyed. In his eyes, his chances were naturally mostly assured. Ling Han was merely in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier, and even if he sealed off his own power, the height of his regulations was still there, and that would be the consummate level completely overwhelming and suppressing the high extreme. Haha, I will let you have the first 10 moves, he said, purposely seeming very generous. All right. Ling Han was indifferent. With a leap, he shot out a punch at Zheng Emo. Since Zheng Emo had already announced that he would let Ling Han have the first 10 moves, he would naturally not break his own word in public. He crossed his arms in front of his own chest, planning to take this strike from Ling Han head-on. Pang! Ling Han's punch arrived, and with a burst of power, it blasted out towards Zheng Emo. Light shot to the skies. When the power had completely dispersed, Zheng Emo was still standing proudly. He had cultivated to the pinnacle level at the Mountain River tier, Sun Moon tier, and Heavenly Body tier. Thus, even in a battle of equals, his power would not be inferior to Ling Han's, either, and added with the fact that he could overwhelm the latter in terms of regulations, his battle prowess had far surpassed Ling Han's. Yet, he gritted his teeth slightly. This was a solid attack that was delivered at close quarters, causing even his bones to tremble slightly. He felt discomfort through his internal organs, and felt an urge to throw up. Fuck, it seemed like this guy's physique was extremely amazing. It would not be advisable to battle at close range with this person. The impact of a solid hit was too strong on his body. Ling Han shot out another punch. This was a battle at the level of the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. Furthermore, they were 2 king tiers whose battle prowess had directly soared to the consummate level, so it was naturally incredibly terrifying. Zheng Emo did not shrink back in the slightest, and still appeared very much at ease. Yet only he himself was aware that the impact of this punch caused even his bones to hum, and he had still not recovered even by now. It was as if they would soon shatter into a few hundred pieces. What a piece of trash. In a battle of equal cultivation level, he was already allowed to have the first 10 moves, and he is still not unable to get an advantage. Around them, some people were beginning to mock and ridicule Ling Han. Previously, they had practically not met Ling Han before, yet had heard of his name because it was rumored that Ling Han was to take the position of the 17th elder, which naturally made them displeased. What right did an outsider, and a person who was so much weaker than them, have to be placed higher than all of them? This battle was clear proof that he was practically a piece of trash. Humph, who knows what desolate corner he has crawled out of. He actually deludes himself into thinking of being in a higher position than all of us. What wishful thinking. Then we will allow him to understand through this battle that a piece of trash will always be a piece of trash. No matter how much he is flattered, he will still be dirt. Ha ha ha, then just let Zheng Emo teach him a good lesson. Ling Han naturally would not take these words to heart. He charged out a third time, and still shot out a punch. It was a simple, direct and rough move. Pang, pang, pang. Ling Han shot out 7 punches consecutively, and Zheng Emo took these 7 blows head-on, showing no weakness. He was like an unmovable boulder, as firm as a mountain. In the eyes of spectators, it was naturally Zheng Emo who had full control of the situation. He only had to take the last 3 punches, and that would be the time for him to counterattack. It could be imagined that with his power, defeating Ling Han would be a piece of cake for him. Yet, Zheng Emo felt like he was about to cry. The bones in his arms were really close to their limit. There were already web-like cracks on them, and if it were not for the fact that his power was strong, and he had forcibly condensed his origin power in his arms, they would have broken a long time ago. But if he continued to forcibly hold on like this, how many more punches would he be able to endure? 3 punches. Seemed like they were so far away. Ling Han smiled softly and comforted him. Hold on for a while longer, there are only 3 more punches left. Fuck you. Zhang Mo gritted his teeth and declared, after 3 moves, I will let you know what are the results of provoking me. Weren't you the one who challenged me? Ling Han pretended to be surprised. He raised his right fist and shot out another punch without any hesitation. Pang! Pang! After another 2 punches, Zhang Mo finally couldn't help but show a sliver of pain through his expression. This kind of close-range exchange of blows was something that all elites would be wary of because they would also have to sustain the full power of the backlash in a situation in which the power of both parties was about the same. However strong the power you blasted out, you would in truth also have to sustain as much on your own side. Aside from those that concentrated on cultivating their physiques, no one's bones would be too sturdy. Even if it was a demon master, he would not be able to hold up to such attacks. What more he? The last move. Ling Han rushed out, his figure speeding up, becoming a flash of lightning. He drew out his right fist, and seemed like a divine dragon that was riding the winds. Boom! Zhang Mo gritted his teeth, and still chose to confront Ling Han head-on. His pride would not allow him to shrink back at this time. This naturally was still a situation in which neither was at a clear advantage. In terms of power, the two of them were about the same, but subsequently, Zhang Mo unexpectedly did not begin his counterattack. Da. Blood was dripping from his fingertips. What? Seeing this scene, everyone exclaimed in surprise. Their expressions were filled with disbelief. They couldn't accept this outcome no matter how hard they tried. Why had Zhang Mo suddenly been injured? Look! Someone pointed at Zhang Mo's arm. Gasp! Everyone inhaled sharply, and could see that Zhang Mo's right arm had swollen so much that it was thicker than his thigh, and they could clearly see that it had become misshapen, and was covered with traces of blood. This was clearly his bones having been shattered into shards, and having pierced through his skin. Only then did they know that every single time when Zhang Mo received a punch from Ling Han, he had to pay a very heavy price. His bones could not hold up to the impact, and with the accumulated damage from 10 punches, it finally formed a qualitative change, causing all the bones in his arm to shatter. Multiple surprised gazes were directed at Ling Han. Even the 3 demon masters Ling Xiaoran, Ouyang He, and Go Hai were no exception. Gu Feng, on the other hand, lowered his eyes, seemingly thinking deeply of something unknown. Chapter 1581. Clash of Celestial Techniques. Ling Han smiled faintly and asked, "Still want to fight?" "Yes." Zhang Mo gritted his teeth. He had only broken one right arm, and though this would affect his battle prowess, he did not need to give Ling Han any more handicaps. After drawing out the distance between them, he could use all his techniques. How could it be that he would still be unable to win with that? Come! Ling Han crooked a finger. Humph! Zhang Mo raised his left hand. Wang! A divine light enshrouded him. His face was filled with seriousness, and he suddenly pressed his hand down on Ling Han. Heavenly clouds piercing mountain hand. Boom! The giant hand descended, and there were regulations of great Tao entwined around it. It was as if the heavens themselves were raging, and a hand of divine retribution descended, planning to erase everything in this world. Ling Han nodded internally. The other party's power was not inferior to his, and in terms of regulations, his level was higher. Furthermore, he was using some kind of secret technique now, which pushed this man's battle prowess to a very high level. He was truly very strong. However, how could it be that he did not have a stronger technique? Ling Han flicked a finger, and a flash of sword light surged out. Immediately, it transformed into innumerable flashes of sword light, sweeping out towards that giant hand at an extraordinarily fast speed. Lightning Sword Technique. Now that he had merged the regulations of 2 realms, the might of a lightning sword technique had also improved to a new level because this was not just the regulations of 1 realm, but the regulations of 2 realms. Creation and destruction formed a cycle, as if it was world creation. He couldn't help but feel enlightened. In truth, neither the present demon masters nor saints were the Genesis tier in the true meaning of the word, because the Genesis tier meant simultaneously including the 2 source regulations of both creation and destruction. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Sword chi swept out towards the 9 heavens unhindered. The present lightning sword technique was incredible. It was based on speed, and had merged with the power of heavenly tribulation, added with tide of the ages. Furthermore, it was Ling Han's own creation. If he was the one using it, its might would naturally be maximized. The large hand that Zhang Mo had pressed down with was instantly torn apart. When it arrived, it had actually lost all its might long ago. Not even a corner of Ling Han's robes had been lifted. So powerful! All the king tiers also raised their brows slightly. No matter how much they looked down on Ling Han, they had no choice but to acknowledge Ling Han's abilities when they were faced with such a scene. Though it was claimed to be a battle of equal cultivation levels, Zhang Mo actually had a very big advantage. In terms of regulations, he was at the advantage, and even if one of his arms were broken now, his advantage should still be overwhelming, but they were both equal with this one strike. This was too shocking. A hint of seriousness finally appeared on Zhang Mo's face. Previously, even if his arm had broken, he was still confident, and thought that Ling Han only had a slightly stronger physique. But now, he withdrew this kind of underestimation. In a battle of equals, this was a strong enemy, an opponent that could even defeat him. This made him very defiant. As a top-grade king tier and a supreme prodigy, he would not allow himself to lose to anyone in a battle of equals. His eyes shone, and multiple streaks of energy rose up from his body, turning into a mist that entwined around him. Boom! His aura suddenly burst further. It was clearly that only 10,000 stars were shining, yet his power seemed to have suddenly risen to a new level. The unique celestial technique of the Zheng clan, Mist Technique. Not only can it greatly increase one's battle prowess, it will turn into a mist that will surround you that none can penetrate. I never thought that his trump card would be forced out so quickly. There is no other option. From the start of the battle, Zhang Mo has not had the upper hand at all. He would be too embarrassed. If it was any other person, he would also feel shame. With a battle cry, Zhang Mo suddenly charged towards Ling Han. With a tremble of his hands, he shot out 2 streaks of bright red clouds that turned into 2 divine spears that rapidly flew towards Ling Han, poised to stab him. There were multiple divine patterns entwined around the spears, and the light of great Tao was flickering on them. This strike was clearly stronger than the attack before. Ling Han nodded internally, but he was not afraid in the slightest. Competing with him in celestial techniques? Come, let's see who has more celestial techniques. Boom, endless darkness surged out of his body, and instantly enshrouded everything. The darkness of the paramount night, a celestial technique that he had used about 1,000 years to learn through these 3 months. Being enshrouded by complete darkness, everything had vanished. Nothing could be seen, touched, or heard. It was as if the whole world had vanished from existence, or he himself no longer existed. Why can't I see through this kind of darkness? Someone exclaimed in surprise. That was an eternal river tier pinnacle level elite. Though he had only formed over 1 million stars, and his power was considered the weakest among all the king tiers, he was much stronger than Ling Han, yet he actually could not see through this darkness. What was going on here? Everyone looked here and there, and then their eyes focused on Zhang Ting, Yi Quan, and Lu Dang. They were the only 3 freaks out of all of them that had formed 3 million stars, but these 3 people all shook their heads with grave expressions. Hiss, even they could not see through it. Everyone turned their eyes away and turned to look at the 3 demon master-level prodigies Ouyang He, Lang Xiaoran, and Go Hai. As for Gu Feng, they were not familiar with him, so it would naturally not be suitable for them to direct their queries at him. Ouyang He was the most approachable of them, and he said, "This should be a celestial technique that can block the senses. If one's cultivation level is equal to his, you will be influenced. It is only a matter of whether the influence will be more or less. Only if one surpasses him in terms of a major tier will they be capable of being completely unaffected." What he implied was that demon masters would not be affected by Ling Han, but as long as Ling Han advanced into the Genesis tier, then even heaven demons would be affected, though the effect would not be very strong. This ant actually could use a celestial technique. Could it be that he was not a country bumpkin, but had originated from some forbidden land himself? In the darkness, Zhang Mo did not move recklessly. He realized that his vision, hearing and divine sense had been confined to a very small range. He was in the pinnacle level of the eternal river tier, after all, so though the darkness of the paramount night could affect him, it could not possibly completely block his senses. But he did not even know where Ling Han was, so how was he supposed to defeat Ling Han? Ling Han grinned, and stretched out his right hand to grab out at Zhang Emo. Flying Dragon Shadow Hands, another celestial technique. Boom, his right hand formed a golden dragon's paw that was incredibly and extraordinarily fast. Otherwise, how could it be called Flying Shadow? It was so fast that even a cultivator of the same cultivation level would only be able to catch sight of a flying shadow. Zhang Mo's expression changed drastically. In the darkness of the paramount night, his reaction would be considerably slower than usual in the first place, yet such a fast attack was actually directed at him, so he was naturally in a sorry state. Again! Ling Han grinned. His right hand was still channeling the Flying Dragon Shadow Hands, while his left hand was using the Lightning Sword technique. This too was a technique focused on speed. It should be known that the Tide of the Ages was also embedded in the Lightning Sword technique, and these were 4 celestial techniques. Just ask the whole netherworld now, who else could use 4 celestial techniques at the same time? Even if they could learn 4 celestial techniques, who would be capable of using all 4 of them at the same time? Only Ling Han could. Of course, the Empress would definitely be more powerful in the future because she had 9 doppelgangers. Theoretically, she could also use 10 celestial techniques simultaneously, and the mere thought of that would terrify others. Zhang Mo was tiring from continuously parrying the incoming attacks. He was endlessly hit, and as multiple flashes of power streaked over him, they left behind one wound after another on him. If it was not for the fact that he still had a black-plated armor which was indestructible, it would not be only his limbs and face being injured. Ah! He released a roar of rage, and suddenly blew out a breath with all his might, which actually blew away all the darkness by force. Stars shone resplendently as more than 2 million of them shone at the same time. In the end, he had still broken his word, and channeled the power of all his stars. Actually, claw, but it can mean a whole hand with claws in Chinese too. I doubt his 5 fingers turned into 1 claw, hence paw. Chapter 1582. Kill till a mental breakdown. Everyone was rendered speechless. Previously, they could not see anything because of the darkness, but now that the darkness had dispersed, they could see that Zhang Mo was covered in injuries. They could imagine how terrible his situation had been at the time. If it was them in his place, would they also be forced to use their full power? Most probably yes. This was the instinctive reaction of a cultivator. Zhang Mo's expression was livid. After a slight hesitation, he brazenly made a move, grabbing out at Ling Han. Since he was already compelled to use his full strength, then so be it. Why not take this opportunity to simply defeat Ling Han? Humph! Ling Han's gaze turned cold. If Zhang Mo had kept his word, and maintained a battle of equals, then even if he lost, Ling Han would still feel a sliver of respect for him, but he wanted to bully Ling Han just because of having a superior cultivation level. Then he'd just suffer the consequences of his own actions. Wang, the 27 killing formations in his body activated at the same time. Ling Han's whole body was exuding a terrifying aura. He raised his right hand, and there was only an inch-long ray of light extending from his fingertip, but anyone who saw it would feel their hearts and souls tremble, anxious and ill at ease. At first, Zhang Mo had already reached him, but he forcibly halted his dash, and looked like he had seen a ghost. He stared at the light on Ling Han's hand, his expression shifting. What is that? Ultimate invincible, severing the heaven, destroying the earth, slaughter all, Ling Han replied with a serious face. Zhang Mo was not a fool, and immediately realized that Ling Han was messing with him. He couldn't help but humph and said, having a glib tongue is useless. In front of absolute power, you will only be crushed. Ling Han involuntarily smiled. Then why don't you make your move? Though Zhang Mo's words were filled with disdain, he did not dare be careless in the slightest. Though that was only a ray of light, he felt as if he could see an ancient beast inside Ling Han's body. If it rushed out, it would be able to destroy everything. His expression was filled with seriousness. At this time, he had an incredible advantage in power, which he had to make good use of. He threw out a punch at Ling Han from a distance, and the frightening power took the form of innumerable gusts of energy. He did not use any technique, and was merely using his superior power to overwhelm him. This was a very smart way to fight. Power that was strong enough could break all techniques. Ling Han charged out. When the bursts of energy reached him, his whole body emitted light, and easily sliced all the attacking bursts of energy into pieces. He was completely unhindered, and continued to charge towards Zhang Mo as if no technique could touch him. This! Zhang Mo's hair stood on ends in his fear. He could clearly feel how powerful that force inside of Ling Han was, but his words had already gone too far. Furthermore, he was already using his full battle prowess, so how could he have the nerve to dodge? Gritting his teeth, he shot out his left hand in response to Ling Han's attack. Hong, the power of his fist surged out. He was still alert, unwilling to exchange blows with Ling Han at close range. Ling Han barged through it directly. The killing formations showed their might, and there was no way to stop him at all as he directly approached Zhang Mo. Pang! 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 Zhang Mo had no choice but to exchange blows with Ling Han. He only managed to force Ling Han back after throwing out 3 successive punches. When he looked at his raised hand, he could see that his left hand had become badly mangled. The killing formations were too frightening. Even if he had used origin power to wrap around his fist, it was useless. His hand had still suffered many injuries. Probably only king tiers that formed more than 3 million stars would be qualified to match him, which also meant that Ling Han had become an absolute big shot among the Eternal River tiers, and could be an equal for Zhang Ting, Yi Quan, and Lu Dang. Only Genesis tiers would be able to defeat them. But the problem here was that Ling Han was only in the high extreme. If he advanced into the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, just how strong would he be then? Would he be able to match a demon master? Ling Han did not spare Zhang Mo even though he had the advantage now. He had not trifled with or offended anyone, so what right did they have to keep targeting him? He had a temper too, all right? Pang 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 pang. His punches fell like rain, and as the killing formation circulated, it was as if he was an Ashura demon king from hell, his murderous aura soaring sky high. Zhang Mo was unwilling to admit defeat. If he publicly admitted that he was no match for someone in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier, what pride would he have left to face others? This resulted in increasingly more and more injuries on his body, and also the increasing seriousness of his wounds. Finally, he had no choice but to activate that plated armor, which formed a protective shield around him. Only then did he manage to block Ling Han's attack. This was a demonic tool, and was one of the precious treasures and family heirlooms of the Zheng clan. Because he was too outstanding, it had been bestowed on him. It could only be used for defense, and would save his life in a crisis. He was only one step away from the Genesis tier, so he could more or less completely activate this plated armor. At least, power below Demon Master level would not be able to penetrate it. A balance of power finally emerged in their battle because Ling Han's defenses were practically invincible among the Eternal River tier, so neither of them could wound the other. But everyone knew that Zhang Mo had lost, and lost very terribly at the was using his full battle prowess, and had even used his demonic tool, yet that only led to a tie. Stop! Lu Gon could not bear watching, either. Wasn't this just being shameless? He moved and separated Ling Han and Zhang Mo with a palm strike, as if he had drawn out 2 worlds. This was the strength of a black demon. All of you need to work hard. The few who are ranked the lowest have to take note. If you place last 3 times in succession, you will have to leave this place. Lu Gon's eyes swept over them, causing a few people to pale. If they were expelled from the Green River Valley, that would be a great humiliation. Everyone left respectively. The competition here was really too fierce, and no one dared relax. This place was filled with top-notch king tiers, and whoever slacked off in the slightest would only be surpassed by others. Ling Han had completely exposed his strength in this battle, and made everyone remember him. However, the most outstanding rookie this time was still Gu Feng. Though he had not moved at all, his cultivation level was still there for all to see. He was a genuine young big shot, a being that had a chance of becoming a heaven demon in future. Of course, Empress Luan Xing also won everyone's attention. The men admired her, while the women were filled with mad envy. Ling Han and the Empress returned to their stone chamber. He had seen his own shortcomings in this battle. He was still not strong enough to sweep aside all opposition in the Eternal River tier. This was something that he could do nothing about. In this place, everyone was a top-rate king tier, and it would be difficult to defeat them even in a battle of equals. What more when he had to surpass a gap of a minor level? If it was not because Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and had incredibly strong godly bones which allowed him to inscribe so many killing formations, he, too, would have to adhere to the ironclad rule of cultivation, and yield in front of these king tiers. They continued to cultivate. The Empress's cultivation level was practically growing boomingly. She had 10 doppelgangers which could simultaneously ingest alchemical pills and comprehend Tao underneath the reincarnation tree. The frightening power of the 9 Deaths Heaven art was on full display, with nothing reserved. Ling Han also taught celestial techniques like the Tide of the Ages, Great Evolution Technique, and Darkness of the Paramount Night to the Empress. He believed that when she, too, advanced into the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, her battle prowess would definitely be capable of suppressing big shots. With a Celestial King technique as her base, how could she not be awesome? Time passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. The Empress had reached the peak of the high extreme, and was about to break through to the consummate level. Meanwhile, Ling Han had just barely advanced another step, and reached the middle stage of the high extreme. And it was at this time that a major event happened in the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. A new forbidden land had joined them. The Dongchong Forbidden Land. Tan Clan. Chapter 1583. The Tan Clan Makes Trouble. The Tan Clan actually joined the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Wasn't it said that the Grand Elder of the Tan Clan was afraid of getting into trouble, and worried that forcibly interfering in the evolution of heaven and earth would result in divine punishment, and a heavenly tribulation would descend and erase them directly? Why did they suddenly now want to join the Heaven-Crushing Alliance? When Ling Han found out, he couldn't help but smirk coldly. The Tan Clan had come for him. They knew that he had a Celestial King technique, so how could they be willing to give it up? But he had already gone to Green River Valley. There was no way that the Tan Clan would dare to attack the Green River Valley by force, right? Thus, they chose to join the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, and then they naturally would be able to send their own people in. As long as their people could enter, they would have a chance to move. It was impossible that Ling Han would continue to close himself up in the Green River Valley, right? Then, once he left, they would be able to target him and find a chance to make a move on him. They really are troublesome pests. I haven't gone to seek you all out. Instead, you have come on your own. Ling Han smirked coldly. He had 1 to 3 times of power boosts from the Black Tower, so he did not mind using these chances on the Tan Clan. The Tan Clan joining the Heaven-Crushing Alliance did not cause much commotion. They arranged for a black demon to come here as a teacher. Additionally, they also sent in 3 clansmen, but none of them were as outstanding as Tan Mo. In fact, they were inferior to even Mo Li and Zhu Ba. In the Green River Valley, all the young king tiers were discussing spiritedly regarding the reason for drawing in a new forbidden land. This is for the sake of competing with the forbidden lands from the immortal realm, someone explained, seeming to know the truth. At first, with 8 forbidden lands of the immortal realm and 8 forbidden lands of the netherworld, we just reached a balance, and neither side has an absolute say, but our grand elders here clearly want to emerge superior over them, and have thus decided to draw in a new forbidden land. Furthermore, our netherworld has 8 forbidden lands in the first place, so a major decision would not be easily settled on. What if it was 4 against 4, so who should decide in that case? Now that there would be 5 against 4, there would definitely be one side that would be dominant. Even if it is just 1 additional forbidden land, the game of power that is involved here is extremely deep. In the first place, there were already 2 voices in the alliance. One wishes to draw in excellent saplings from the outside world, while the other objects and thinks that benefits should be kept among our own people. Furthermore, even if outsiders are married into the clan, it would also affect the purity of our bloodline. Now, there may be conflict between these 2 voices. Those that can decide are all the Grand Elders. We will just quietly watch on. After this happened, Ouyang Taishan had purposely come and sought out Ling Han. He told him to maintain as much of a low profile as possible and focus on cultivation. It was best that he did not leave the Green River Valley, thus avoiding any trouble from rising. Clearly he, too, could tell the purpose of the Tan clan, but he was not the only person in the heaven-crushing alliance, so he could not expel the Tan clan. Ling Han sank into deep thought. For the sake of Ouyang Taishan who had helped him before, he did not mind helping the former achieve his lifelong dream, and become a core himself to speed up the merging of the two realms. This was a great merit, and would also be greatly beneficial to him. But if there was someone in the heaven-crushing alliance targeting him, he would not be happy to do that. You guys were already planning to harm me, and I would be still dumbly working for you. I have to quickly advance into the Genesis tier. At that time, even if I cannot match a heaven demon or saint tier, the rest of the world would be enough for me to move unhindered, and I wouldn't have to depend on the Black Tower every single time. Ling Han affirmed his resolve, and did not bother with the disturbances going on outside, concentrating on his cultivation. Yet, the tree longed for peace, but the wind would never cease. He sat in his stone chamber. Today, the cultivation resources for the next year would be distributed. Though he had absolutely no use for them, they were precious treasures for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. She already had 1 foot in the eternal river tier. But no matter how long he waited, no one came. A day passed, and still no one came to deliver anything. Ling Han did not take it to heart. In any case, one day of being late was not too serious. However, he still did not see anyone deliver anything to him on the second and third day. Naturally, he felt that there was something off, and when he went out and made some queries, he was instantly fuming mad. HI's cultivation resources had been docked by that black demon from the Tan clan. Such a brazen move, and the other powerful figures actually did not do anything. Ling Han couldn't help but think of the rumors that he had heard. There were 2 voices in the heaven-crushing alliance. One was open-minded, while the other was conservative. At present, being open-minded was mainstream to draw in young talents. But the Tan clan had publicly docked his cultivation resources, and by now, not a single mighty figure had stepped out to voice objection. The significance of this action was something worth thinking about. The Conservative Party was about to gain the upper hand. Or rather, both parties were arguing about this matter at present. Once everything was settled, there could possibly be a drastic change in the heaven-crushing alliance. Ling Han was slightly confused. It was clear that he was the only candidate that had merged the regulations of the two realms, and even if it was the Conservative Party, they would take him into consideration first. After all, entering into the celestial realm was the major prerequisite that would surpass everything else in importance. That's right, some people want to get a cultivation technique from me, and think that the fact that I can merge the regulations of the two realms is not due to my own natural talent, but rather because I have cultivated a powerful celestial technique. Then, as long as they can snatch my technique, they naturally would be able to merge the regulations of the two realms. Ho-ho, at present, they still do not have a united voice among themselves, so I can still sit peacefully here. It is only the vile characters from the Tan clan making trouble, but if there is only one voice left, it is possible that I will be in dire straits. A man does not keep himself in danger. I cannot base my own safety on the decisions of others. This place is not suitable to stay in any longer. Ling Han did not seek out that black demon of the Tan clan. Since he had docked his cultivation resources, seeking him out to argue with him would only be seeking his own humiliation. In any case, he had no need of them at all, and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden would not need them for the moment, either, so there was no rush. However, the Tan clan made a further provoking move. They actually splashed dog's blood on the doors to Ling Han's cave dwelling, and even wrote a great many insulting words, despising him to the utmost. Thankfully Little Black is not here, or your behinds would be bitten into 3 parts, Ling Han mumbled to himself. He still made no response, because he wanted to know what kind of attitude the heaven-crushing alliance was going to take. If someone stepped out and stood up for him, then he would still be willing to stay in this place. In the future, when the two realms were merged, this would also be a great merit. He was waiting for the heaven-crushing alliance to make their stand clear. This would decide what his next move would be. What disappointed Ling Han was that when a few juniors from the Tan clan provoked him in public, still no powerful figure stepped out to stop them. Ling Han, do you dare battle? I will only use 1 finger. A mere lowly commoner, an ant, and he actually dares to enter into the heaven-crushing alliance so shamelessly, too. 3 clansmen of the Tan clan threw out insults at Ling Han's cave dwelling practically every day. This naturally was witnessed by the other young king tiers, yet they all chose to sit by and watch. None of them were idiots. Till the end, none of the powerful figures had appeared, and this showed their attitude in this matter. Today, the 3 people of the Tan clan were still hurling insults outside, their words extremely rude and unpleasant. Who knew where such king tiers like them had learnt such crude curse words? Schwa, a figure flashed past, and a few paw sounds rang out. The 3 members of the Tan clan were all sent flying with slaps, one side of their faces extremely swollen. Ling Han stood there, his hands crossed behind his back. He was about to commit bloodshed. Chapter 1584. One word, kill. The 3 members of the Tan clan all covered their faces, their expressions filled with shock. Ling Han actually came out, and even gave them each a hard slap. Actually, they felt that it was nothing strange for Ling Han to have come out. As long as he was not made out of clay, no one would be able to tolerate such insults. But Ling Han had sent all 3 of them flying with a single slap. This was something that they could not accept. He was just in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. How could he be this powerful? You actually dared to attack? One of the clansmen from the Tan clan regained his senses, and harshly rebuked Ling Han. His name was Tan Bing, and he was already at the peak stage of the consummate level of the Eternal River tier, but he was still very far from breaking through to the pinnacle level. He did not dare believe this. He was a rank 3 king tier himself, and furthermore his cultivation level was much higher than Ling Han, yet he was actually no match for the latter. Who asked you guys to insult me? Ling Han sneered. We had not broken any of the rules of this place, Tan Bing declared menacingly. They had only splashed a bit of dog's blood, and thrown out a few insults. There were definitely no rules in the Green River Valley that said that such actions would be punished. In truth, those that could enter into the Green River Valley were all king among kings, so who among the mighty figures here would have predicted that someone would actually do something so despicable? But Ling Han was a different story. Without getting the approval of others, he had immediately moved. Furthermore, he had dealt injury. This was a serious breach of the rules. The 3 members of the Tan clan actually had a very simple motive for doing this, and that was to anger Ling Han, causing him to do something that broke the rules. Then, the Conservative Party would be able to move and apprehend Ling Han, and did not need to care about those people from the open-minded party. Once he fell into their hands, what kind of secret could Ling Han still continue to keep? Those were all mighty figures that stood at the apex of divine Tao. Searching his soul would merely be as easy as stretching out their hand. But by that time, Ling Han's secret would not possibly belong solely to the Tan clan, and definitely would have to be shared with the other forbidden lands. Though this was a small flaw, the Tan clan could not only get their revenge, but also obtain the Celestial King technique, so what else would they be dissatisfied about? Now Ling Han had indeed been angered, and had also broken the rules. However, Tan Bing too had sustained a slap, which made him very furious. In his eyes, if Ling Han was unwilling to submit, and made an aggressive move, it should have been him that would personally take him down. The rules cannot be broken. You are destined to suffer the consequences of your own actions. Tan Bing exclaimed coldly. So what if you obtained momentary pleasure and gave me a slap? The price you would pay for this action was your very life. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, You have not seen when I truly break the rules. However, you will be able to see it very soon. That's right. Do you guys have any last words? He asked very generously. Ha 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 ha. Do you really dare to kill us? Tan Bing laughed coldly. His expression was completely menacing. The other 2 members of the Tan clan stood next to him, also wearing cold smirks on their faces. What a real joke. Previously, they had only been caught off guard by Ling Han, and it was impossible that history would repeat itself now. Moreover, the mighty figures were not people to be trifled with, either. Since Ling Han had already made a move, it was definite that powerful figures of Black Demon level would appear, and by then, so what if Ling Han was a big shot among the disciples here? He would only be suppressed. Are those your last words? Ling Han shook his head, appearing to feel sorry for them. Around them, there were already a great many disciples watching the excitement, but none of them said a single word. Everyone was smart and knew that the matter this time around implicated the conflict between the two voices in the alliance. Though they might be prodigies if they interfered, it was guaranteed that they would definitely be crushed into dust. Ling Han had moved to cause injury, and this could be either a very big issue or a very small issue. If the open-minded party had the upper hand, they would naturally be able to turn what would have been a big problem into a small problem, and a casual rebuke would settle the matter. But if it was the conservative party that had the advantage, what would have been a small issue would be magnified. Ling Han, you are too arrogant. Tan Bing smirked coldly. You are only an outsider, and just because a few grand elders have a high opinion of you, you refuse to adhere to the rules, and casually injure others. You are like this even now, so how much worse would you be when you became a demon master? Someone like you should be imprisoned and heavily punished. That's right, every clan has its rules, and every country has its laws. The three members of the Tan clan berated Ling Han continuously. By now, they naturally needed not to have any more reservations, and could just say whatever they liked. Ling Han did not say anything else. He drew out the divine demon sword. Haha, you are really committing rebellion. Tan Bing exclaimed balefully, yet took the initiative to attack Ling Han first. Standing out is not something so pleasant to do. Ling Han stated calmly, and suddenly charged, delivering a strike with his sword. Pooh! A human head suddenly flew into the skies, and it was accompanied by a fountain of blood gushing forth. Pang! Tan Bing's headless body crumpled onto the ground, while his head showed an expression of absolute disbelief. However, his divine sense had no means of leaving his physical body, and having his vital point directly slashed by the divine demon sword, well, at least no one in the Eternal River tier would be able to survive that. He had died with remaining grievances. At that moment, everyone was stunned, and could not release a single sound. Mad, this guy must have gone mad to actually dare commit murder in the Green River Valley. Previously, though Ling Han had broken the rules, as long as some mighty figure had been willing to support him, a casual reprimand would have easily settled the matter. After all, he had not wounded anyone. But the situation was different now. The situation had culminated in death. Now that someone had died, the nature of the matter had become more serious and was a vicious incident. You! The remaining two members of the Tan clan were both pointing at Ling Han, their voices trembling so much they could not speak clearly. Just 3 clowns. Did you really think you had been assigned an easy task? Ling Han shook his head with a smirk. You guys are really idiots, not even aware of the fact that you have been sold. If I don't kill you, the crime will be too light. Did you guys really think that if I just gave you a slap, there would be someone out to target me? The two members of the Tan clan couldn't help but shiver. What Ling Han said was logical. Otherwise, this little bit of time from the moment their conflict began until now was enough for the powerful figures in the alliance to appear, yet why had there been no reaction at all? But you clearly knew this fact, so why had you still dared to make a move? Had you gone mad? Ling Han broke into a grin. I have not gone mad. It's just killing a few idiots, no big deal about it. You guys have been scuttling around all these days, and I have given you guys a chance, but you all are so determined to seek death, so I can only send you on your way. He moved, brandishing his sword. The 27 killing formations inside his body were channeled, and the two were completely no match for him. Pu, another 2 human heads flew up, blood gushing forth like a fountain. Everyone was watching in shock, dumbfounded. Though these 3 members of the Tan clan could only be considered the weakest among them in terms of strength, they were still heirs of a forbidden land, and could be considered prodigies themselves, yet they had been slaughtered as if they were just chickens. Ling Han's courage was commendable, but it was bloody courage, and definitely could not be seen as an example. Humph! A cold humph rang out. It was as if it came from the depths of 9 hells, astonishingly malicious. Next, several golden pathways spread over. A few demon masters had arrived, and they were not yellow demons, either, but rather black demons. Ling Han, how dare you? It was Yi Chengzhang. When Ling Han had first arrived, it was he and Zhang Jing who had been in charge of helping Ling Han settle in. Ling Han broke into a grin and retorted, as a cultivator I should be decisive. Zhang Jing was also there, and he said, You are drawing calamity onto yourself. His face had an expression that said that he expected better from Ling Han. He was in fact from the open-minded party, but a black demon did not have much say in an argument of this level. As long as Ling Han did not kill anyone, they would be able to save him, but now, sigh. Chapter 1585. An unexpected helper. Since he has committed murder, what else is there left to say? Apprehend him. An unfamiliar black demon exclaimed. He was a member of the Go clan, and belonged to the Conservative Party. Wait! A voice rang out, and Gu Feng actually stepped out, and stood in front of Ling Han, looking like he was about to confront the few black demons head-on. Seniors, this matter should be discussed further. Though Ling Han has indeed overstepped his boundaries slightly, it was also because these three people have bullied him intolerably. Everyone was astonished. They had not thought that someone would actually stand up and speak on Ling Han's behalf at this moment. Could it be that this guy was a rash fool? The heaven demons were arguing with each other, and you actually dared interfere. Who did you think you were? Was it just anyone that could become an envoy of justice? Were you even qualified to uphold justice? Humph, we are enforcing the rules here, step aside, the black demon from the Go clan said. He flicked his sleeve, appearing to be slightly displeased. However, Gu Feng was a demon master as well. Though he was weaker than him, he had to give him some face after all. Yet Gu Feng was very stubborn, and he insisted, Ling Han has to be punished, but his crime does not deserve death. Please have mercy. Seniors. Everyone was even more confused. They did not see that he had any friendship with Ling Han, so why would he protect him at this time? Could it be that they had an unknown relationship between them that could not be exposed to others? Even Ling Han was slightly confused. If Gu Feng had been the Reign Emperor, Feng Peiyun, Empress Luanxing, or Hu Niu, then he would not be confused at all, because them helping him would be due to their brotherhood, or because they were husband and wife. But Gu Feng? In fact, he only knew the other's name. Step aside, or you will be suppressed alongside him, the black demon from the Go clan stated coldly. He belonged to the Conservative Party in the first place, and was filled with negative feelings for those not belonging to a forbidden land. Since he has already given the other face, but he did not want to accept, then he shouldn't blame him for being merciless. Did he really think that he did not dare make a move? Gu Feng showed a conflicted expression, his hands clenched tightly into fists, yet just when everyone thought he was about to give up, he shook his head resolutely and exclaimed, I will not. Such nerve. Just exactly were you aiming for? The two of them did not have any deep relations between them, yet he still took the risk of himself possibly being suppressed. This was practically absolutely baffling. Could it be that there was really such an idealistic person in this world that would not hesitate to attempt the impossible for the sake of righteousness? Humph, then we will apprehend you as well, the black demon from the Go clan exclaimed coldly. Gu Feng. Ling Han called out from behind, communicating a message through divine sense. Later I will wrap my divine sense around you. Make sure you do not resist. A strange look flickered in Gu Feng's eyes, as well as a sliver of resistance, yet he still nodded. Ling Han took a few steps forwards, and laughed loudly. We'll end things here today. Take a message from me. Have that old geezer from the Tan clan come here personally, and I will come out to meet him. Otherwise, you will never find me for the rest of your lives. Where else do you think you can hide? The black demon from the Go clan moved, and grabbed out at Ling Han, yet he had just raised his hand when he shockingly discovered that Ling Han had vanished. It was as if he had turned into empty air, and had completely disappeared. Not only Ling Han, even Gu Feng had disappeared. All the demon masters were stunned. Where was he? Such ignorance. They released their divine sense, and began to search for this spatial god tool. However, their expressions became gradually grimmer and uglier. They could not find it, no matter where they searched. How could this be possible? The demon masters all exchanged looks, and could see the surprise in each other's eyes. Where was the spatial god tool? This is definitely no spatial god tool. But what kind of treasure would be able to take in a living being, yet not reveal any traces? Gasp! They inhaled sharply at the same time. A celestial tool. That was a celestial tool, something that not even a celestial king might possess, and those that did possess it would definitely be big shots among the celestial kings. In the great turmoil all those years ago, some celestial kings had fallen, and there were even some supreme celestial kings that stood at the 7th or 8th heaven among them. Then, it would be possible for the boy to have obtained a celestial tool. That's right, it must be because he has obtained the treasure trove of a celestial king, and learnt a celestial king technique that allowed him to merge the regulations of the two realms. Furthermore, he also possesses a celestial tool. We have to find him. Those black demons were all filled with jealousy. Even Yi Changzhong and Zhang Jing, who had initially been on Ling Han's side, were restless. In view of a celestial king technique and a celestial tool, even they could not control their greed. Yet, how could they actually manage to find the Black Tower? What wishful thinking! After searching for a few days, they had no choice but to give up, report this piece of news to their superiors, and ask for stronger characters to be mobilized. However, even if earth demons and heaven demons came, so what? They only stood at the apex of divine Tao, so how could they possibly discover the profound secrets of a celestial item? Ouyang Taishan also came. He flew into a thunderous rage and exclaimed, "So this was why you all drew me over to Moon Wolf Planet. It wasn't because someone was stuck inside a mystery realm, but rather because you all wanted to make a move on Ling Han. Who is it? Step out. Who came up with such a vile scheme?" The few heaven demons looked at one another, and one of them said, "Brother Taishan, there is no need for you to be too excited. As the saying goes, all natural treasures of the heaven and earth should be possessed by those of virtue, and that brat is only a mere ant, so what right does he have to possess the precious treasures of a celestial king?" Ouyang Taishan's eyes were extraordinarily cold, and a silvery river appeared behind him. It was densely covered with innumerable stars that were exuding a brilliant light, while he himself was also emitting a frightening aura. It was as if the whole mystery realm would crumble with a slight tremble from him. This was absolutely possible. The Genesis tier stood at the apex of divine Tao, and had absolute destructive power in this realm. "And you all have virtue?" he questioned disdainfully, furious to the extreme. "Ho ho, the incident has already happened, so what need is there to deliberate about this further?" A heaven demon stepped out as a peacemaker. "What is important now is to make that brat come out. After all, the matter of entering into the celestial realm is still left on his shoulders." Ouyang Taishan was already speechless with fury. "You all treated him like this, and would now delude yourselves into thinking that Ling Han would assist you in merging the two realms. To be fair, that brat is indeed unqualified to possess the inheritance of a celestial king. This is something that belongs to us, the remaining residents of the celestial realm. However, since it was that brat that obtained the treasure trove of the celestial king, we can allow him to cultivate the celestial king technique as well, but he must hand over the celestial tool," another heaven demon declared. This was completely ridiculous. It was they that wanted to snatch what belonged to Ling Han, yet they put up a pretense of being generous, and allowed Ling Han to cultivate a celestial king technique as if they had granted him an insurmountable kindness. Ouyang Taishan didn't even want to speak anymore. He had made his decision. As long as Ling Han appeared, he would take him away from this place. Chapter 1586. Gu Feng's True Face. Inside the Black Tower. Gu Feng's face was filled with shock. The expanse of this spatial god tool rendered even him speechless. He raised his head, and saw that there were only two colors, black and white, interwoven in the skies. Those were the regulations of the immortal realm and netherworld. Because they were opposites, they had taken form and were opposing each other in this manner. He was even more stunned. This spatial god tool could actually accommodate the regulations of two realms at the same time. This was too incredible. "Come, I'll take you around on a tour." A strange smile curled up the corners of Ling Han's lips as he led Gu Feng on a stroll. On the way, he gave an introduction. 1 year was equivalent to 1,000 years for the herbs growing in this place, and once in a while, something the likes of the 5-element life force would also be nurtured here. Gu Feng was completely speechless, and followed Ling Han around like he was a dead fish. If anyone suddenly found out all this, they would definitely go numb with shock. Finally, Ling Han brought Gu Feng to the reincarnation tree. The Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden were presently cultivating in isolation beneath the tree, and now that the reincarnation tree had been upgraded, 1 day was equivalent to 10 years of cultivation. Furthermore, there was also a boost to the numbers it could accommodate at the same time, reaching as many as 20 people. Thus, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden finally did not have to compete with the 9 doppelgangers of the empress. This is the reincarnation tree, Ling Han introduced. For those comprehending Tao beneath the tree, 1 day is equivalent to as long as 10 years. A muscle twitched in Gu Feng's cheek. No wonder your cultivation level is already approaching the Genesis tier when you yourself are less than 500 years old. Ling Han smiled. The reincarnation tree was only one of the reasons. He had continuously risked life and limbs all these years, venturing into various mystery realms in search of fortune. This was the fundamental reason for his rapid advance through the cultivation levels. However, since Gu Feng was determined to think that all this was due to the reincarnation tree, then he would just let him have that misunderstanding. In any case, ho. Ling Han, do you trust me so much to bring me into such a precious treasure? Gu Feng broke into a smile. Incredibly carefree. This definitely was sincere. For someone who can step out and stand up in support of me in that kind of situation, why can I not trust him? Moreover, Pang! Ling Han had yet to finish his words when Gu Feng unexpectedly moved suddenly, and shot out a punch at his back. Pang! 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 Gu Feng did not spare him even though he was at the advantage, and repeatedly attacked. His fists were wrapped with dazzling light, and he endlessly attacked Ling Han. He was a demon master, and be it in terms of power or regulations, he far overwhelmed Ling Han. Unless Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, he would definitely be killed after 10 blows at most. His cultivation level had advanced further, so he naturally would be able to sustain more attacks from a demon master than before. Ling Han stood proudly, and did not dodge. Neither did he parry the attacks. He simply allowed Gu Feng to attack him as much as he liked. After attacking 100 times, Gu Feng couldn't help but pale in shock. Was this a fuck monster? What eternal river tier could continuously bear so many attacks from a Genesis tier? More importantly, he did not sense that Ling Han had made any move to channel any origin power. At this time, Ling Han slowly turned around. Tremendous shock filled Gu Feng's heart, and he quickly retreated 300 meters away, maintaining vigilance. Fine. You are the true supreme ruler of the Black Tower, and I can only control the Black Tower through you. Yet Gu Feng had completely paled in shock. Tool spirit. This celestial tool has a tool spirit. Impossible, even if there is a tool spirit, how could it possibly recognize an ant like you as its master? This was a celestial tool, a high and noble celestial tool that could even kill lower-tier celestial kings, and it would actually recognize an eternal river tier as master. How could he believe that? You care about too much business that is not yours. Small Tower stated coldly, looking completely proud. Gu Feng took a deep breath and exclaimed, Tool spirit, recognize me as your master. I am 101,000 more outstanding than he is, and I will definitely be able to help you return to glory. Let us join forces, and create our own prosperity and success in the celestial realm. Retard. Small Tower shook slightly. I can't be bothered with him, I'm leaving. With a light wave, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. Gu Feng was anxious, and wanted to pursue it, but he had absolutely no idea where he should go to chase after it. Ling Han broke into a grin. It's about time for you to show your true face, right? At this time, the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden also stopped cultivating, and stood on either side of Ling Han as they stared coldly at Gu Feng. True face? What do you mean? Gu Feng calmed down. Ling Han was unhurried. In any case, he had as much time as he wanted and said, You and I could be considered total strangers, yet you would actually step forward so bravely for my sake. Ho, I believe that there are indeed such people in this world, but I definitely do not believe that you are one of them. Why? Gu Feng asked solemnly. Because when we first met, there was something odd about the gaze you directed at me, Ling Han replied. That's your only reason? This naturally is only one of the reasons, Ling Han continued. Thus, I drew you into the Black Tower. If you had been a good guy, being able to go so far for the sake of a complete stranger, it would have been all right for me to let you know the secret of the Black Tower. I could even allow you to enjoy the benefits of the Black Tower as well. If you had truly been as I had guessed, don't forget, in this place, I am the master. Ahem. A cough rang out from small tower. This proud tower was really too petty. Gu Feng did not speak. He directed his gaze at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden and Empress Luan Xing, an ominous glint in his eyes. Don't think of taking them hostage, because you will not be able to do so. Ling Han shook his head. Actually, it is not difficult to guess your identity. Go ahead and tell me, Gu Feng said solemnly. The words ancient and moon combined to become Hu, and wood and wind together is Feng. Ling Han said with a smile. Hu Feng, fancy that you would actually pursue me all the way into the netherworld, and you even found me. Furthermore, you changed your appearance and entered into the Green River Valley as well. Gu Feng's body shook, and he did not say a word. Light slightly flickered on his body. Immediately, there was a massive change to his features. What had initially been tanned skin turned fair, with a kind of elegance and otherworldly air to him. Hu Feng, the strongest prodigy from the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. Ling Han clapped his hands and said, I have to admit that I am impressed. You managed to grasp the regulations of the netherworld so quickly, and have even increased your cultivation level to Demon Master level. Hu Feng humphed. When he had first entered into the netherworld, he had been continuously hunted down by beings of the netherworld, and the regulations of the immortal realm he had grasped were also worn down endlessly by the heaven and earth of this realm. For the sake of the treasures in Ling Han's possession, he changed his appearance, and drew the attention of the heaven-crushing alliance with his talent. He was then drawn into the Green River Valley. At first, he wanted to find a chance to kill Ling Han secretly, and rob the latter of all his treasures, but he had never imagined that Ling Han would actually be such a troublemaker. You were really a fuck-bearer of bad luck, causing him to have no choice but to take a gamble, and step forward bravely at the most crucial moment to speak up for you, Ling Han. He knew that Ling Han had in his possession a celestial tool which could be concealed and had no form. At least, even a saint like himself could find no traces of it. If Ling Han had no conscience, and didn't take him with him, he would then reveal his identity. The Hu clan was also a member of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Worse come to worst, he would only be reprimanded, and would not have any life-threatening danger. Chapter 1587. Killing Hu Feng. Hu Feng only had one motive for taking such risks. He wanted to solely possess the Celestial King technique and the Celestial Tool. Otherwise, would the 9 forbidden lands of the Netherworld share this with their allies of the Immortal Realm? What a joke! Since he only had to cultivate the Celestial King technique to be able to merge the regulations of the 2 realms, and enter into the Celestial Realm, then what need was there for the Heaven-Crushing Alliance? What did it have to do with the Immortal Realm any longer? Promoting the merging of the 2 realms? None of my business. I only wanted myself to be able to enter into the Celestial Realm, and that was enough. Xiao. Hu Feng's figure suddenly streaked out. His target was the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the Empress. Previously he had already tried. Ling Han was protected by the Tool Spirit, and could not be wounded at all. As long as he managed to take these 2 women hostage. Only then would it be possible for him to turn the tides. I already said that you are only meat in this place, and can only wait to be killed at my leisure, so what are you going to so much trouble for? Ling Han very casually delivered a slap, and Hu Feng was suddenly sent flying by the force like a kite that had its string cut. Pooh! Hu Feng spat out a mouthful of blood, his face filled with shock. He actually was no match for Ling Han. He was a great saint, and was actually no match for an eternal river tear? How was he supposed to believe that? Don't have too high an opinion of yourself. Beneath celestial kings, anyone that enters into the Black Tower will only be trampled by me, Ling Han said calmly. Master is wise. Master is imperious. Master will unify the whole world, that will last for eternity. The Azura Demon Emperor made a timely appearance. At this time, he naturally had to flatter Ling Han like crazy. He was really filled with incredible admiration. This time, it was a demon master that had come in, and he was still suppressed by his master just like all those before him. His master was really too strong. Hu Feng struggled to get to his feet. Ling Han did not deal him a fatal blow, or he would have been done for with a single strike. He was both envious and defiant. The reason why Ling Han could be so powerful was only because he had obtained a celestial tool. It was not he himself that had such strength. He had only had good luck. No, this is mine. I, Hu Feng, have natural talent that is nature-defying, and will definitely become a powerful figure in the celestial realm in future. Tool Spirit, did you hear that? Follow me. Only I will be able to return you to glory. Hu Feng shouted at the skies. He already knew that he was indeed no match for Ling Han in this place. Thus, his only possibility of turning the tides was for the Tool Spirit to change sides. Small Tower appeared and said to Ling Han. His words have some logic to them. Brat, quickly humbly urge me to stay at your side. Ling Han chuckled. He knew that this proud tower was only joking around. Yet it was as if Hu Feng had clutched a straw when drowning. Tool Spirit, I promise you, as long as you follow me, I will make you my equal, and definitely will not command you. Small Tower scoffed slightly. He spoke as if Ling Han was able to command it now. It was proud, and couldn't even bother to take notice of Hu Feng. It was only teasing Ling Han by habit. Ling Han clapped his hands and said, Hu Feng, don't struggle any further. Accept your fate. Humph, you're just by depending on the celestial tool. What strength is that? Do you dare measure yourself against me in true abilities? Hu Feng spurred him on. Otherwise, he really did not have a sliver of a chance. You are in the Genesis tier, and you actually have the fact to ask my husband to measure himself against you? You truly are shameless. Heavenly Phoenix Maiden rebuked. Yet Hu Feng only acted as if he had not heard her words. For the sake of his life, and also to turn the tides. So what if he was a little shameless? Losers were always in the wrong. History was written by the victors. Ling Han shook his head and said, I am not that senseless. Hu Feng, when you hunted me before, why did I not see you suppress your cultivation level to fight me? Ho ho, in your eyes, I am only an ant, and you disdain to even cast another look at me. Then that is also the case at present. In my eyes, you are not even an ant. I have already shown my respect for you by saying so much nonsense to you. You can think of this as your reward for pursuing me into the netherworld to seek death. And now, you can be on your way. No! Hu Feng roared. He was not reconciled to this. Hong, he ignited his life force, planning to put his life on the line. When a Genesis tier burned their life force and put their life on the line, just how frightening would that be? The present Hu Feng would probably be able to even fight a black demon for a while inside the Black Tower. With the regulations of both realms complete, Hu Feng could completely exhibit the might of a saint, and was in fact stronger than he was outside. Too bad. The problem was that Ling Han was even stronger in the Black Tower. He tapped out a finger. Wang, endless power crushed Hu Feng, and he was suddenly pressed onto the ground, his limbs spread out. He no longer had the slightest ability to resist. Inside the Black Tower, just how strong could Ling Han be? Beneath Celestial King, he would be able to suppress all. A single breath of air from the severing mundane ancestor would be able to kill a Saint King or Heaven Demon a few hundred times over. What more when it was power on the level of a Celestial King? I will not yield. I will not yield. I will not yield. Hu Feng's eye sockets were almost splitting in his extreme fury. He did not beg for mercy. When he had hunted Ling Han, he had also been absolutely merciless. If Ling Han still felt soft-hearted towards him, then he must definitely have gone out of his mind. He was filled with hatred. Why had he walked right into this trap? Why hadn't he killed Ling Han at an earlier time? You are only going first. Not long after this, I will return to the immortal realm, and raise the 8 stones forbidden land to the ground. Ling Han humphed, and lowered his hands slightly. Pa! Hu Feng was instantly crushed into dust. Not even the smallest stain of blood was left behind. He waved his hand once more, and flipped through Hu Feng's memories. He also retrieved a spatial spirit tool. Hu Feng was indeed capable of creating a spatial god tool, but its capacity was limited. Thus, even a Genesis tier would mostly bring a spatial spirit tool with them, for no other reason but it having a large capacity. After flipping through Hu Feng's memories, realization dawned on Ling Han. No wonder Hu Feng had been able to catch up to him. so it was because there was a link of karma connecting them. Now that he had killed Hu Feng, he had again formed a link of karma with the Hu clan, which could only be severed with 1 to 3 times of undergoing heavenly tribulation. As for those places that touched on core secrets, like the celestial technique of the Hu clan, there was a restriction placed on Hu Feng's memories. It would be destroyed upon contact, and there was no way to go through them at all. That's all right. At least I have found out where the 8 stones forbidden land is. In future, I will charge over. Ling Han mumbled. Now I just have to wait for that old geezer from the Tan clan to come, and do something big. Ling Han paused, and then asked, Small Tower, if I use the power boosts 3 separate times, what level could my battle prowess reach? Would I be able to defeat all heaven demons and saint kings? Small Tower appeared. It can only allow you to reach the peak stage of the Genesis tier. However, on the height of regulations, you would be able to suppress any heaven demon or saint king at the peak stage because they have only grasped a portion of the regulations of Genesis tier. Which means I will be able to defeat them in a one-on-one battle? Ling Han asked. Yes. Ling Han sighed, and calculated internally. If the number of peak stage heaven demons he had to kill was limited, then he would choose 3 power boosts used separately, and if there were 20 to 30 peak stage heaven demons, he would use a single power boost and conduct a massacre. However, there were definitely a limited number of peak stage heaven demons, and even the 9 forbidden lands would not be able to produce too many of them. What more when it was definitely impossible that all the peak stage heaven demons would come? Thus, he chose to use a small power boost. Chapter 1588. Chiding Heaven Demons. Ling Han flipped through Hu Feng's spatial spirit tool. Most of its contents were true origin stones, with a small number of alchemical pills, but he did not discover the presence of any saintly medicine. True, even if they did have saintly medicine, it would be stored in the 8 stones forbidden land to be consumed when needed. Time passed, day after day. In any case, Ling Han spent his days concocting alchemical pills and cultivating, so he completely did not feel that the time was hard to pass. He had seen the conflict between Ouyang Taishan and the other heaven demons, which made him feel slightly better. At least there was someone that had not betrayed him, and was standing on his side. A Celestial King technique and Celestial tool were much too important. There were powerful figures endlessly coming from the 9 great forbidden lands, from both the conservative party and open-minded party. However, now the problem was no longer about whether to maintain a conservative or an open-minded attitude. There was only a single celestial tool, so they just set it aside first. Who did not want to obtain a Celestial King technique? After cultivating such a technique, there was no need to wait for the merging of the 2 realms, and they could directly achieve success in one go. The merging of the 2 realms was a theoretical possibility, but who knew how many years it would take for the 2 realms to completely merge even if there was someone that had successfully merged the regulations of the 2 realms taking the role of a core? 100 million years? A billion years? 10 billion years? This was in no way more of a guarantee than directly cultivating a Celestial King technique. Thus, the open-minded party was also divided into 2. The majority supported the actions of the conservative party, demanding that Ling Han hand over the Celestial King technique. As for the Celestial tool, there was only one, so they could slowly discuss its ownership. There were pitifully few big shots that shared the same opinion as Ouyang Taishan. There were only a total of 3 of them along with him, yet there were as many as 25 big shots standing opposite them. The true big shots were heaven demons at least, and there were a few of them that were big shots even among heaven demons. The Grand Elder of the Tan clan had also come, bringing with him another heaven demon who was much younger. The latter would inherit his position and protect the Tan clan in future. Where is the brat? The Grand Elder of the Tan clan asked immediately after he arrived, flames that took the form of 2 fiery dragons bursting from his nostrils. Those were flames that could turn even the stars in the skies into ash. He hasn't appeared, a heaven demon answered. Ling Han did not appear, and they could do nothing about it. They could only sit in a cross-legged position in the surrounding area. Beneath them, there were also a great many earth demons and black demons, but they were not qualified to sit on equal level with the heaven demons. They could only sit in the area at the back. There was even less need to mention the disciples. They were watching from an even farther distance away. Ling Han was also very carefree in the Black Tower. He was not anxious in the slightest, so he would just keep these people hanging. He made some queries of Small Tower, and understood the abilities of every single elite in this place. Peak stage heaven demons, 9 of them. Heaven demons beneath that, 16 people. Earth demons, 37 people. Black demons, 51 people. As for yellow demons, they were uncountable. Ling Han calculated internally. Those that could become tough opponents for him would be those 9 peak stage heaven demons, but Ouyang Taishan could be excluded. Additionally, there were also another 2 peak stage heaven demons that he suspected were Ouyang Taishan's allies. 25 heaven demons. This lineup was a little frightening, but thankfully there were only 9 peak stage heaven demons. Furthermore, if Ouyang Taishan and his companions could help him block a few of them, there were actually not many peak stage heaven demons that he had to face at the same time. I'll just use a minor power boost. After all, it is only those few peak stage heaven demons that make me feel that they are more problematic, Ling Han mumbled. I'm really poor, so I have to be thrifty in my use. When I return to the immortal realm, I still have to face the 8 stones forbidden land, so I have to save a few tricks up my sleeve. He smiled at the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden and said, My 2 wives, allow me to venture out for a short while. Be careful. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden finally showed a caring, gentle expression. The Empress was very imperious, and declared, Just beat the crap out of them. She had utter confidence in Ling Han. Ling Han nodded, and with a flash of his figure, he appeared in the outside world. Hey, let me make things clear first, he pressed down his hand. If anyone makes a move on me, I guarantee that I will disappear immediately. With these words, all the big shots halted their advance. They had absolutely not discovered how Ling Han had appeared. This kind of ability had surpassed their imagination, and also allowed them to realize that if Ling Han truly wanted to vanish, it was not something that they could stop. Young man, the Celestial King technique is much too important, and is not something that you can possess alone, a heaven demon spoke. Hand it over. As for the trouble you have caused, we can lighten your punishment on the basis of your merit in handing over the Celestial King technique. Humph. The Grand Elder of the Tan clan was extremely displeased. The people that had died were all the members of the Tan clan. Ling Han swept an eye over the Grand Elder of the Tan clan, pointed at him and declared, I am extremely displeased with the attitude of this old guy. Who among you can drive him away? Brat! The Grand Elder of the Tan clan suddenly moved in fury, and directed a slap at Ling Han. Shua, Ling Han's figure immediately vanished. He was gone in front of the eyes of those many big shots just like that. They couldn't find him. There was completely no trace left of him. Finally, all the heaven demons had to admit that they truly could do nothing against Ling Han. 2 days later, Ling Han reappeared, and said, Have you all learnt your lesson? I will say it one more time, and it will also be the last time. If anyone still makes a move on me, then I will not appear again. For eternity. All the heaven demons were flushing from his chiding, yet they all suppressed their emotions. There was nothing else they could do. In the face of a Celestial King technique, so what if they had to swallow their anger for this moment? Ouyang Taishan, meanwhile, stroked his beard, and showed a sliver of a smile. Previously, his expression had been stern, but seeing all the heaven demons admit defeat now made his feelings suddenly turn to delight. Only then did Ling Han nod his head. Fine then let us now talk. Brat, a heaven demon spoke up. What brat, an old man, you have been living for so long, and all your years of living have gone to waste. Don't tell me that you do not know how to respect others? Ling Han immediately chided him, completely not treating the former as a noble and powerful heaven demon. That old heaven demon couldn't help but turn green in fury. If it was any other person who had spoken so rudely to him, it would be simply just had to kill him with a single slap. However, the problem was that he couldn't make a move now. This was really infuriating. Now you are the ones begging me, so your attitude had better be proper, Ling Han continued. Young friend Ling. Another heaven demon spoke up. Now this is the correct attitude. Ling Han turned towards that heaven demon. Old mister, how do I address you? That heaven demon couldn't stop his expression from darkening. Old mister? He was the strongest existence of the netherworld, so how had he suddenly become an old mister? Young friend Ling, What do you want to be willing to hand over the Celestial King technique? A third heaven demon asked. This was the proper business here. Ling Han couldn't be allowed to bring them off track again. Ling Han broke into a smile and turned to the Grand Elder of the Tan clan, deliberately pasting an expression of shock on his face. Why is this old geezer still here? The Grand Elder of the Tan clan wanted to make a move again. Previously, someone called you brat, and you claimed that it was disrespectful, yet now you yourself are calling others old geezer. So why were you not talking about respect now? But when he recalled Ling Han's previous threat, he could only suppress this kind of urge, though his expression looked considerably worse than before. I was willing to come out to meet you all, and this is my sincerity. So, you all should show some of your sincerity, all right? Ling Han pointed at the Grand Elder of the Tan clan, and then waved his fingers as if he was driving someone away. The heaven demons felt like they were close to being driven mad. Previously, it was Ling Han himself who wanted the Grand Elder of the Tan clan to come here, yet now he was driving the latter away. Your attitude has changed a little too fast, hasn't it? Chapter 1589. Just playing around. But who asked Ling Han to be holding their lifeline at this moment? All the heaven demons discussed with each other for a while, and they finally requested the Grand Elder of the Tan clan to go somewhere further away. This infuriated the Grand Elder of the Tan clan. As a noble peak stage heaven demon, he stood at the highest summit of the netherworld, yet because of the request of a mere eternal river tier, he had been driven off. Holy fuck! The heaven demon from the Go clan spoke, young friend. Oh, now I remember. Ling Han suddenly interrupted, breaking off what this person had been saying. That is the old geezer from the Tan clan, right? I forgot that I deliberately asked for him to come. You guys go and call him back over. All the heaven demons felt an urge to throw up blood. Are you fuck playing with us? Even if these people were very subtle and had astonishing self-restraint, their expressions involuntarily turned livid at this time. If you won't, I'm leaving. Ling Han deliberately turned around. Though entering into the Black Tower was only the matter of a single thought for him, he had to show his attitude here. Don't! The heaven demons all hurriedly called out simultaneously. Fine. The Grand Elder of the Tan clan was again asked to come back. However, though he was able to return, his expression was already livid. He was not a dog, and he was being called over here and over there like this. If it was someone else in his shoes, who wouldn't have some temper? Ling Han glanced at the Grand Elder of the Tan clan with a smile and said, Old geezer, are you in a bad mood? You're already so old, so don't keep getting angry. What if you suddenly choke in your anger and suddenly die to meet your ancestors? The Grand Elder of the Tan clan simply closed his eyes. What the eye didn't see, the heart didn't grieve over. When the people in the surrounding area saw this, they couldn't help but be incredibly impressed with Ling Han. What eternal river tier had you seen that would dare speak like this to a heaven demon? Furthermore, he was completely unscathed even after provoking him, forcing the Grand Elder of the Tan clan to swallow his anger. Young friend, don't change the topic, the heaven demon from the Go clan continued. We are also very sincere now, so can you continue? You guys really have no sense for entertainment. Ling Han sighed. A bunch of old antiques, putting on stern faces for the whole day, not even smiling a bit. I even thought your faces were made out of stone. He paused and then continued. Fine then, we'll first discuss the matter of my compensation. What about your compensation? What losses have you experienced? The heaven demon from the Go clan asked. Young friend, you don't seem to have had any losses, right? How could I not? Ling Han's expression was angry. Old man, your eyes are really too faulty. How can you not see this? I was harassed in all manner by those three bastards, suffering great emotional damage. During this time, I didn't even manage a good night of sleep, and don't tell me that this is not a loss? He was an eternal river tier, however. In the first place, he was completely fine even without sleep, and secondly, how could it be that he would be so angered up to this extent just because of a small issue like this? Everyone was speechless. At first, the Grand Elder of the Tan clan only planned to be a spectator, but when he heard these words from Ling Han, he almost exploded in fury. You suffered emotional damage. Then what about the deaths of 3 clansmen from my Tan clan? How is this to be accounted for? The heaven demon from the Go clan almost bent his nose in fury too. When had he ever experienced being called an old man right in front of his face like this? He took a deep breath and suppressed his stirring emotions. Only then did he say, "All right, I can decide this matter. I guarantee that it will satisfy you." Ling Han waved them off and said, "Actually, I am not really a greedy person. As for compensation, it would be enough to just casually give me a dozen saintly medicines." You were really not greedy, and only demanded 12 saintly medicines. The heaven demon from the Go clan did not know what else to say by now. He opened his mouth, but did not manage to say a single word. This was committing daylight robbery, quoting such a massive compensation that even he did not know how he was supposed to start bargaining. Impossible! The heaven demon from the Zhang clan declared firmly. What a joke! A dozen saintly medicines. What did you think saintly medicines were? Even for forbidden lands like theirs, they only grew 1 or 2 saintly medicines, and only managed to harvest them once in tens of millions or even millions and millions of years. Saintly medicines naturally were used for those that needed them the most to break through, or used to heal injuries to great Tao. Throughout these many years, it was natural that most of them had been used up, and it was already impressive for each forbidden land to manage to keep 1 or 2 saintly medicines. Ling Han chuckled and said, "I already said, I am not a greedy person, so just set the matter of the saintly medicine to one side first. The Tan clan bullied me intolerably. I request for the Grand Elder of the Tan clan to apologize to me." Gasp! Hearing these words, everyone was stunned. "Brat, you were really awesome." The Grand Elder of the Tan clan was a peak-stage heaven demon, a top-tier existence in the whole netherworld, an absolutely inarguable big shot, and you actually demanded that he apologize to you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Putting aside that you were merely an eternal river tier, even if the 8 great forbidden lands combined forces to exert pressure, the Grand Elder of the Tan clan might not submit like that, either. How was he going to live in future? What face would he have left to see others? Not a single heaven demon spoke any longer. This implicated the Grand Elder of the Tan clan, and no one else's words would count for anything. Could it be that they could force down the head of the Grand Elder from the Tan clan, and force him to apologize? The Grand Elder of the Tan clan naturally could no longer pretend to be deaf or dumb. He looked at the many big shots here, and forcibly suppressed his fury as he said, "Young man, I can promise you that as long as you hand over the Celestial King technique, the debts with the Tan clan will be written off." When he said these words, his expression appeared malevolent. He very much wanted to kill Ling Han, but he could do nothing about it. At present, Ling Han was calling the shots here, and if he did not compromise at this time, he would become the combined target of the other 8 great forbidden lands. For the sake of the Celestial King technique, he would swallow his fury. Ling Han suddenly stood up, his face filled with anger. "Old man, you are too unreasonable. It was your clansmen that came to harass me and disturb me. I am the victim here. I should be the one to say that the debt is written off. What do you mean by saying that?" The Grand Elder of the Tan clan flew into a thunderous rage and declared, "Brat, I have tolerated you for a very long time. You are merely being deliberately provoking us here." Ling Han paused, and then grinned. "This intelligence of yours, really? Sigh, how should I put it? Only now can you tell that I am just playing around with you all? You people really are extraordinarily dumb." Schwa, all the big shots were angered. When had they ever been tricked before? Moreover, they were all tricked at the same time. Ling Han laughed loudly and exclaimed, "Don't scare me. I will run away if I am scared." He paused and then continued, "Old Geezer Tan, do you dare fight a duel with me?" A duel. At this, everyone was dumbfounded. A mere eternal river tier actually declared that he wanted to duel a demon master. Moreover, this was no ordinary demon master, but a peak stage demon master, a big shot that stood at the apex of the netherworld. Was he seeking death? This brat had just been expressing his pity for the intelligence of others just now, and now it was his intelligence that was in the negative. Yet the Grand Elder of the Tan clan smiled in his extreme fury. What was going on with this world? A mere eternal river tier actually dared issue a challenge to him? He humphed and asked, "What qualifies you to exchange blows with me? Is this enough reason?" Ling Han grinned. "If you defeat me, I will give you the Celestial King technique." As simple as that. How could an eternal river tier possibly be any match for a peak stage heaven demon? This was really just like what he said was giving him the celestial technique. The Grand Elder of the Tan clan hesitated slightly, but immediately nodded. As long as Ling Han did not duck into that celestial tool, he would be able to apprehend the latter. By then, who cared whether he would hand over the Celestial King technique or not? It would no longer be up to him to decide. "All right," he agreed. Chapter 1590. Fighting a Heaven Demon. Not a single big shot spoke up in objection to it. Which one of them would fear Ling Han? They merely did not want him to hide in that celestial tool. Now, since Ling Han wanted to fight, that was equivalent to giving them an opening, allowing them to easily apprehend him. Ouyang Taishan meanwhile frowned slightly, but since Ling Han had proposed this, then he naturally had his own reasons, so he did not stop him. The mystery realm opened up. If the Grand Elder of the Tan clan really became serious, the restrictions in this place would not be able to bear his full power. Thus, this battle naturally had to be commenced in the galaxy. This was an empty space that was far away from the sun. Thus, this was an area of complete darkness, filled with dead silence. And in this dead silence, Ling Han and the Grand Elder of the Tan clan stood, facing one another, a distance of about 10 miles between them. "Brat, are you sure you will not hide?" The Grand Elder of the Tan clan asked calmly. He was using his words to spur Ling Han on. What if the latter suddenly ducked into the celestial tool again? He would be able to do nothing. Ling Han smiled faintly. "You're just an old wretch I will be able to easily kill with a flip of my hand. What's the point of spouting so much nonsense?" "Damn brat!" The white brow of the Grand Elder of the Tan clan rose, and he showed a strong killing intent. He suddenly moved. Wang, a giant palm of fire grabbed out towards Ling Han, endless seals throbbing within the flames. This was the embodiment of the strongest regulations of the netherworld. "Small tower," Ling Han said softly in his mind. Wang, endless power suddenly surged from his body, and his aura abruptly spiked a few 100 million times, thousands of millions times over. In that one moment, he felt that he had become omnipotent. He could create a hole in the heavens themselves with a single palm strike, and would be able to obliterate all life with a single thought. The large hand grabbed out at him, and Ling Han shot out a fist to greet the incoming attack. When the demon masters saw this, they were all surprised. Ling Han really dared to fight the Grand Elder of the Tan clan. This was definitely attempting the impossible. I feel like that brat's power has spiked an innumerable number of times. That's right. He seems capable of even standing against me. This is inconceivable. In front of their shocked eyes, Ling Han's punch shot out, and that palm from the Grand Elder of the Tan clan was instantly rent into pieces. Even if those heaven demons previously had expected this, they were still so shocked by this scene that they did not dare to believe what they were seeing with their own eyes. Had this brat ingested a celestial pill? How could it be possible that he had become so many times stronger in a single instant? It had to be the secret technique of the Celestial King. The eyes of the Grand Elder of the Tan clan widened slightly. This result had also far surpassed his expectation. He humphed and said, "No wonder you had the courage to oppose me, so it seems that you have the backing of a Celestial King's secret technique." He couldn't help but be incredibly envious. This kind of secret technique allowed Ling Han to directly leap from the high extreme of the Eternal River tier to the peak stage of the Heaven Demon. If it was his, then just how much stronger would he become? Would he then be able to directly tear a rip into space and enter into the celestial realm? With this thought, his greed went out of control. What strong power! Ling Han stretched out his limbs, and was a little infatuated with this feeling of power. Too bad, this presently did not belong to him, but he believed he would possess such strength in the foreseeable future. "Old geezer, I will send you on your way." He rushed up with his bare hands, but at present, his power was too strong. He was the only person in the whole netherworld that could grasp the regulations of the two realms at the same time, And this kind of strength would be able to overwhelm any demon master or saint king. In the galaxy, the two elites battled fiercely, but there was no doubt about it. The Grand Elder of the Tan clan was completely being suppressed, and was absolutely at a disadvantage. This brat is actually strong to this extent. This is inconceivable. Though old Geezer Tan is not the strongest among peak stage demon masters, it is enough to rank him in around the top 10. If anyone was able to suppress old Geezer Tan like this, it would probably only be the 2 or 3 people whose battle prowess is the strongest. However, it is definitely impossible that such strength could be maintained constantly, or the hierarchy would have lost its meaning of existence. When this brat's strength is completely expended, we can attack together when he least expects it, and apprehend him with a single move. The big shots were all communicating through their divine senses. Aside from the limited few that were comprised of Ouyang Taishan and his companions, all of them were eyeing Ling Han covetously. It couldn't be helped. Who would not be tempted by a Celestial King technique? Even Ouyang Taishan was tempted, but he had stronger principles. Not good. Old Geezer Tan is close to his limit. Attack together. Another several hundred moves later, the Grand Elder of the Tan clan was already in a perilous situation, and it was possible that he would be heavily injured at any time. This caused all the big shots to become restless, and they all made their move, intending to suppress Ling Han. Humph, you all are too shameless. Ouyang Taishan also made his move, but his attack was not directed at Ling Han. Instead, he was directing his attack at his erstwhile allies. Ling Han, don't be brave for this moment only to regret it later. Leave quickly. He could guess that this strength of Ling Han was definitely only momentary. Otherwise, the hierarchy of cultivation would have lost its meaning. But those 2 big shots that had been with Ouyang Taishan did not make a move. They chose to stand by and watch them. Not attacking was already giving face to Ouyang Taishan. Ling Han's eyes swept over them, and saw the expressions on all their faces. This would decide how he would deal with these people in future. Old geezers, are you guys tired of living? He asked darkly. Brat, there is no way you will be able to escape. Hand over the Celestial King technique, and we can spare your life. The Heaven Demon of the Yi clan called out loudly, but his punch had already arrived without any reservations. There was no need to leave him alive, they only needed to pluck out his soul. Furthermore, they would only be able to trust him completely through plucking out his soul. In a matter that concerned the Celestial King technique, who would believe Ling Han's words? What if there was the slightest mistake in the celestial technique? Then the result of cultivating it could possibly be being driven mad, and completely burnt to nothing by Great Tao. Since that is the case, I will send you all on your way. Ling Han emitted a battle cry. This time, he would not hold anything back. Indeed, he had not done his best previously. Otherwise, how could it be that the Grand Elder of the Tan clan would be able to hold up for so many moves? He wanted to see the choice that every person made, and that was why he had deliberately drawn things out. And now, he was about to start a massacre. Die! With a tremor from his hands, his left hand held the broken wooden sword, while his right hand gripped the divine demon sword, and he charged out towards the heaven demons. Shwa, 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 sword chi danced unhindered. Wang, the 2 divine swords were completely activated, multiple seals appearing on them, releasing brilliant light. They were drawing on Great Tao, and were incredibly powerful. At this time, the broken wooden sword was stronger. This was a level 20 demonic tool, and with Ling Han's present power, he could completely activate its full might. On the other hand, the divine demon sword was only level 17 at present, so its might was considerably weaker. However, if the divine demon sword hit any of their vital points, even severing mundane ancestors would die. What more heaven demons? This was a future celestial tool. Its destructive power was definitely impressive. Ling Han was like a fierce tiger that had charged into a flock of sheep. As he brandished the 2 divine swords, there was no one that could face him head-on. They all fled in all directions. Darkness of the Paramount Night. Ling Han channeled the celestial technique. Hong, endless darkness spread out, enshrouding all the demon masters. Going along with Ling Han's burst of cultivation level, the might of darkness of the Paramount Night was naturally also boosted, and had strong effects even on heaven demons. The lightning sword technique was used. Ling Han did not need to care about whom he was currently facing. There was only one word for it: kill. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.